All right. I think we're live, or we should be. Hey guys, welcome to the show. Please let us know if you can hear us. You might notice we have a special guest with us tonight, our friend Jace from Cosmic Origins or Conscious Crypto Academy now, right? Correct? Did I
That's
get it
right.
right?
Yeah, both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them. So, yeah, it's just a last minute thing. He's been posting a lot of stuff on Instagram about all the current events and stuff about this timeline shift. So we just decided to bring him on with us tonight. We're just going to have some fun. We're going to chat about all this stuff. We're going to answer your questions. But before that, I'm going to make a few announcements. Let me make sure that we are actually live. It looks like we are. Um, and then let me pull up my notes so I don't forget any announcements. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for being here. So, just a reminder, we have quite a few events coming up that I'd like to talk about. The next one coming up is in September 26th through the 29th, I believe, in Tucson, Arizona, the Mind Nexus event, where Aaron and I will both be speaking. Desiree Foley and a friend of hers, Jesse Beltran, are putting it on, and it's kind of it's surrounding the targeted individual subject and all the surrounding topics. Carrie Cassidy will be there, John D'Souza, Alex Bloom, Ben Chastain from Edge of Wonder, Jen and Brian Berryhill. It's a
Mhm.
great lineup. So tickets are available for that. That link is below in the description, along with a few other conferences that I'm about to tell you guys about. So also, whoever wants to go to Egypt, here's your chance. Next March, March 2025, Abby Lynn is hosting a retreat in Egypt for 2 weeks, and there's five spots available. Myself, I will be there along with Tony Rodriguez, Lily Nova, Anne Marie Morales, and I know I'm forgetting some other people, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about it. It's my first time going to Egypt. That link is below, abbylynn.com/events, and you can find all the information you want about that Egypt trip. Like I said, there's five spots available, and take advantage of that while you can before they run out. And what else do we have? I will be speaking at XCon, the UNX Network Conference, XCon in Springfield, Missouri, October 11th through the 13th. And those tickets are available as well. Today is the last day for the early bird tickets. So if you want to come and hang out in Springfield, Missouri in October, it's a really cool hotel. It's actually haunted. We had a lot of paranormal activity there last year, but our Margie K actually specifically asked me to speak on the history of the secret space program. So that's what my presentation will be on. And then October 19th, immediately following that, I'll be in Sedona for Tony Rodriguez event, Tony and Lily Nova's event, the Odyssey 1 day event, October 19th in Sedona, Arizona. So grab a ticket, come hang out there if you're in the area. And then the last one I want to announce is the Star Knowledge Conference, November 9th through the 11th in Picktown, South Dakota, where I was asked to speak as well. And I know Tony Rodriguez will be speaking at that one, Suzanne Spooner, and there's a great lineup. So all of those links are below in the description. So take advantage of that, and we hope to see you at least one of them. So now that that's out of the way, what's going on, guys?
What's up?
It's been a crazy last couple of weeks.
It has
Right,
been.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like every time you turn around right now, what this reminds me of is during the Q movement, right?
Yeah.
Every event, every current event, everything that happened, all of a sudden everyone was decoding it. And the Q drops are all of a sudden becoming relevant again, and all
Mhm.
these timestamps. And I know, people wrote all that off, but if time travel is really involved and looking glass technology is really involved, which we strongly believe it is, especially after our webinar, I mean, there's just no coincidence with a lot of this stuff. And we're seeing, I mean, we're witnessing history before our eyes, and everything that's happening now seems to have been already known about, or at least the people paying attention had foreknowledge of many of these events. And if you guys want to add to that,
And not just, I'm going to add this real quick, not just the Q drops are lining up to what's happening now, but there's actually new crop circles that have just happened recently that are also lining up exactly. Which David Wilcock, some people love him, some people hate him, whatever you think. He's been going live. Like I think he's gone live like 3 times in the last few weeks. And this is also reminiscent to the Q days. Like he's going live decoding everything with the Q drops and everything else and Trump stuff. So it's very reminiscent about 4 or 5 years ago again. But anyways, there's crop circles that show there's one that shows like crosshairs and then like what looks like a bullet right next to it. There's different things that line up to the events exactly. So there's a lot of proof, in my opinion, that there's a lot of divine intervention, divine help, and ET intervention and help as well with the planet and humanity. And you know, we're kind of like watching all this unfold, but we're a part of it. We're an active participant as well. So it's very exciting times.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the Trump assassination attempts, I mean, if that isn't like proof that there's something greater going on here and that he's protected and he's involved with it, I don't know what is, you know, and that it was obviously an inside job of this shadowy group that's been behind the scenes that's obviously controlling the Secret Service and you know, much of our government and agencies. So it's waking a lot of people up, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, and the one thing about that, the assassination attempt was I forget who the hosts even were on Badlands Media. They decode all the Q drops and all of his truths on Truth Social, everything that Trump posts there. And a lot of stuff, interestingly enough, he'll post something and then delete it, but people are watching it like a hawk and they're screenshot everything because they know some of it gets deleted. Well, on his way to the rally, where he got shot at, he tweeted or truthed something that had a timestamp and that connected to the timestamp from a Q drop that said, "Who is the Secret Service really protecting?" And so it was truth and then deleted on his way to the rally in
On his
Pennsylvania.
way, come on.
Yeah.
I mean,
so and the timestamp connected to the Q drop that said, "Who's the Secret Service really protecting?" And it's stuff like that you just can't. I'm sorry, you can't make up.
I'm sorry that it's just mathematically impossible to be. And then there's things like even the exact time that it happened, which was 6:11 p.m. There's like 6:11 shows up in the Q drops that say exactly, you know, there's all these things. And then there was even like 6:15. They reported it as happening at 6:15, but that's wrong. It actually happened at 6:11. But there's also a Q drop that correlates to the 6:15 that they incorrectly said. So it's like there's like proofs on proofs on proofs. I mean, it's just insane, you know.
Somebody pointed out in the last David Wilcock stream as well, what Aaron, you were talking about that crop circle with the crosshairs. Somebody pointed out live on stream that crop circle, I guess, happened at 6:11, or like the post of it was at 6:11, which is the same, you know, 6:11 that
no way
that the shooting happened, and then the Bible verse that goes with it. So there was like
Ephesians 6:11, which says put on the full armor of God. Yeah. Wow. Well, there you go. One more. There you go.
And then all the Shadow of Ezra posts have kind of been like a continuation of the Q posts in a way, which has been really cool to see.
Yeah, and all the Shadow of Ezra posts. Yeah, which David is convinced is the Alliance, which me now looking into it, I am pretty convinced as well. It definitely seems to be Shadow of Ezra on X or Twitter. Yeah, I still call it Twitter.
Yeah. Personally, I'm not convinced that it's like 100% like the Q drops being continued, but I definitely think that he is part of those circles in a way.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's not exactly the Q drops, but it's definitely some connection to the Alliance or the White Hats, whatever you want to call them.
And they get crazy amounts of views too, like tens of millions sometimes, which is really nuts.
And guys, we will not miss your questions. I'll scroll back to the beginning of the chat and I'll address the questions. But I do want to let everyone know, if you do have a question for us, please put question in all caps before your question. This way we don't miss it. We can easily identify it in the chat because sometimes it's hard to pick them out. But yeah, I agree. with everything you guys are saying. You know, the Shadow of Ezra definitely. I mean, I don't think they would just put like you know, a key figure, one of their key players right out in the open like that, but definitely probably some connections, some inside knowledge. Either way,
Mhm.
you know, it's all very interesting. And I do want to share my screen really quick and share some breaking news that I just saw right before we went live. That's actually probably one of the most important things we should be covering today. Um, um, Elderly couple visits 644 out of 645 Cracker Barrels.
Wow,
A lot.
that's impressive.
I was like, it's hilarious. But this is Mockingbird. This is the mainstream media.
This is this is news. Yeah, this
While
is
the
what they're reporting.
world is literally in flames, this is what they're telling us about. This is the news.
Yeah, they'll tell us about. They
Right.
want to talk about what Joe Biden's favorite flavor of ice cream is and how many Cracker Barrels an elderly couple visits.
But but what here's my theory. Once they visit number 645, that solidifies a positive timeline. So we gotta root for them to get to that last Cracker Barrel.
Right,
Where is
right, right,
it? Do we know where the location is? Because we can
No,
like help them get there.
I have no
right. Where's
idea.
the one? Right.
I have no idea.
I feel
Um,
like wasn't Cracker Barrel like either mentioned briefly in the Q drops or like somewhere else
Was
related
it?
to that? I feel like there was something.
there was a Mandela effect surrounding it. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Maybe that's what
Uh,
Mm,
it is.
they were supposed to have only been like a Midwestern chain, and it never was on the West Coast. But people swear that they visited it in California and stuff like that. So, I mean, what's not a conspiracy theory anymore?
Right.
but-
So many
Um,
timeline shifts.
right.
right.
And you know, the Olympics. So, the opening ceremony, which is so I wasn't watching it. A friend of mine was watching and she was texting me kind of updates and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," but I didn't see anything yet. And then I got on X and I watched part of the opening ceremony where that guy in the blue was singing and I got sick to my stomach. I'm like, it was so disgusting of an energy and
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh my God," like you could feel it immediately and like if you don't I mean I see a lot of people trying to say it's not satanic. Not everything is satanic, but it doesn't really matter. It's the energy behind it. It was like a drag show, a drag performance,
Yeah.
and you know, half naked people in all these weird colors. I mean, it literally looked like Hunger Games, the people in Hunger Games. And I felt like it was a very disgusting energy. And to me, that is what Satanism looks like. It doesn't always have to look like the devil with the horns and all that. It's an inverted
Yeah.
reality, is what it is.
Yeah. This one they did a little bit more like plausible deniability with it on purpose, in my opinion. They intentionally were going for this time like the easy debunking with the like they did correlate it to like Dionysus, the Greek god, and like that feast and whatever that they oh, it's not the Last Supper, it's this feast. And but they like laid it out exactly in the format of the Last Supper. It's obviously mocking but then they use the plausible deniability. Oh no, it was just this. Um along with the trans stuff and the balls hanging out, like clearly, testicles
Well,
in your face.
right.
And the head, the headless thing, and like so like yeah, it was a satanic ritual. It was, but they just put more plausible deniability stuff on top of it.
And the fourth
Uh
horseman,
Yeah.
you
the
know,
Because I was gonna say
horsemen
yeah,
Horseman.
of the apocalypse,
That one's
right?
really
yeah.
hard to deny. Like that was really blatant.
But
And
they
it's a
also
real,
had one for that one too. They're like, no, it's this, and everyone in
well,
the everyone program goes, oh, it's this. You guys are idiots.
I
Yeah,
mean, of course they're going to have an explanation for everything. It was a robotic horse, an AI horse too. But Jace, you were about to
right.
say something.
I heard there was a clip that I haven't seen it myself, but I heard there was a clip of the woman who would have been Jesus in that Last Supper scene with the crown on her head, like when she was leaving the stage, like referencing herself as like being the next big Jesus or like something like that, like referencing herself as Jesus, where like clearly they knew it was a parody or a mocking of the Last
Right.
Supper.
That's what those
Yeah.
parasites will do to your mind.
Well,
Make
there
you
you go.
believe things like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and
There
you
you
know, today the fight, the boxer who quit 45 seconds into the match because she was fighting a biological male which is absolutely ridiculous. And Jace, you posted that South Park clip, which is supposed to be satire, but it ended up being truth, like the truth in the satire. And I think like almost all the satire we've seen over the past few years ends up being truth. It's based in some sort of reality. So
Yeah.
It's interesting because, or sorry, go ahead. I don't mean
no,
to
go
interrupt you.
ahead. Go ahead.
You know how Simpsons has been used as like a prophetic thing, but for the dark mostly, like the Simpsons prophecies tend to be more on the dark side. And it makes you question, like for instance, with the Kamala Harris, Lisa Simpson, side by side where they're both wearing the purple suit and the pearls, and it looks exactly the same.
Right.
I question, is it really that they knew what was coming, or are they trying to create their own? Are they trying to fulfill the prophecy because they want it to look like they know what's happening? You know what I mean? But on the same side with South Park, it's almost like South Park is the equal and opposite force to it because South Park is like exposing all that BS. So it's like
Right.
Simpsons on the dark side, South Park on the light side. And of course, like, I don't know if you guys saw maybe 2, 3 years ago, South Park had all this stuff about Q and, Obama and HRC and like really went in detail about them like drinking blood and satanic ritual abuse and like all this stuff
Yep.
that was disguised as humor, but like very much disclosure.
Right. And well, there's a few things. So about the Simpsons predictions, right? And or whatever you want to call them. I've heard that argument that it's just, they're recreating what the Simpsons put out. But I've watched a few of them and the amount of incredible accuracy and good acting that you would have to have. I mean, these people would all have to be wearing earpieces. I mean, like, okay, move right now, drop the sign now, bend over now. Like, there's
Yeah.
certain things that I just like, there's no
You'd be
way.
Or
too
they'd have to have
choreographed,
rehearsed
yeah.
it like so many times beforehand, and then
Exactly. Yeah. It would have to have been rehearsed.
So then it
Um,
probably is Looking Glass or something like that,
well,
Palantir or something.
it
I think it's
is
I think it's definitely some kind of
right. I'm just gonna
time
quit.
viewing, most likely
Right.
technology.
I'm just gonna quit saying it probably is and just saying it
It,
is.
It is,
it is.
yeah.
Like, I mean, it is.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of
And
people say Matt Groening, the creator of Simpsons, is a Freemason. I haven't actually looked into that yet, so I can't confirm that. But there's a lot of people that have been saying that, and I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, he has
and
made the hand signs. I have seen pictures.
and,
So
So
do you
and you
think
know what's
South Park,
also
do you think the South
go ahead,
Park team
Jace.
got a hold of the same tech now? Like the Alliance handed it over to South Park team so they
maybe
can kind of,
right, maybe they're working with the Alliance
yeah.
more. Who
Well,
knows?
whenever we interviewed Daryl James, he was told that the South Park creators, the writers, were approached by the Navy at one point for a
Right.
specific episode on adrenochrome, but I'm sure that's not the only time that it's happened. So
Mhm.
they're getting like just like the directors are getting declassified CIA documents and stuff like that to put into their
Mhm.
movie scripts. I'm pretty sure it's the same way. But going back to the Olympics and the boxing match, that interestingly enough, coincidentally set Trump up for the biggest volleyball spike of all time because now Donald Trump says he will ban biological males from competing in women's sports. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's amazing. So I mean, was it a big publicity stunt to get him extra points in the polls? You know what I mean? Is this all again work the dark serving the light, working in his favor? There's so many ways we can approach this.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting. With Kamala, she's so unpopular. I mean, she's like way less popular than Biden, even. And that was even a joke when he supposedly won 81 million votes, which did not happen.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. It's like, obviously they cheated a million ways for that to happen. Is the Alliance going to let that happen again? And it's going to be even more obvious this time and wait more, or are they just going to let the real votes be counted? And then, in my opinion, Trump is definitely going to win in that case.
Or they
And
even gonna let the election happen.
or
Like,
there's
Right.
or right, I was going to say that, or is the election even going to happen? I think it's going to get that crazy, and there will be no election. Trump said something interesting recently. Let's say he does get into office, which I'm hoping, or at least, I mean, we'll see what happens. But he said he's like encouraging Christians to vote, and he's like, "Don't worry, just this once, and then you won't have to do it again."
Mhm.
implying there's not going to be another election after this or this presidency. That's not going to be the typical
Right.
vote every
Well,
4
it's
years
going
and
to
a new
be
president.
it'll be Barron and then Ivanka or vice versa.
Mhm.
I mean, there's
Hmm.
so many things that could happen. There's so many theories, all the whole Trump theory in general, like the Trump in the blue tie is his clone and the red tie is the
Hmm.
original. And then other people say
Right.
the original's never been in public and since 2016 and then there's the
I
body
don't believe
double.
that.
Yeah, I don't believe that either. And then there's the body double, which I do believe because the golfer Trump,
Mhm.
that dude's not Trump. Like I've
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's
that
Very
his
dude,
body
similar,
double.
yeah, I
very
mean, every
similar.
time they show him, he's shaped different. I mean, he resembles him. Um,
Could
it's
be a
like that.
clone. Could
It,
be
it,
a clone that just is a little bit off.
yeah, it could be a clone. It could be like that movie Dave. If you see from
Hmm.
1993, I just seen someone share it. It's about a man who looks exactly like the president that they basically pull off his couch and be like, "Hey, the president, was killed, and we need you to take his place, and we're not going to make the public aware. We're just gonna
Yeah.
everyone's going to think that you're him."
Like they've done with Biden for
Right.
how many years now? Yeah. It's like
Exactly. But
the
you know
real
what's
Biden.
interesting?
Yeah.
What's
Is not real.
interesting is, Aaron, I shared this with you on Instagram. The WEF advisor, World Economic Forum advisor to Klaus Schwab says, if Trump becomes president again in 2024, it will be the final death blow to the global order.
Yeah.
Interesting that he would say that because
Yeah.
I mean, he's got all the inside scoop, right? I mean, he knows what's going on. So he
Right.
must know that they're scared to death of
Why do you
whatever
think they
comes with
tried to
that.
kill him and take it publicly?
Right.
Publicly, because they know if they, here's the thing, they know they need to do it publicly. I was listening to Gene Deco the other day, and he was saying this. I'm like, I agree. They could try to take him out. I don't think they're going to be allowed to take him out no matter what. He's being protected. They would have taken him out a long time ago if they could have taken him out, right? He's been protected for a long time, in my opinion. But they still are trying, obviously, which we just saw very publicly. And they know they need to do it publicly because if they do it privately and no one knows, they can just, you know, um, like it won't have the same effect that they're going for.
Right. Yeah.
It's like they need the big emotional outrage. They need the big for their agendas to work, which is why they need to do it publicly, which is why they tried to do what they did. And
And on the flip side, the
yeah,
timeline unification that happened because of the way it
yeah,
went down
it
is like,
completely flipped on them the
yeah,
opposite direction. Yeah.
like I
Right.
was just reading in the Law of One books about how those kind of events, whether it's, kind of attempted assassinations or like even concerts or anything where you're getting a group of people in the same mental vibration and like shared headspace, that's like creating the collective consciousness even more. So like it
Yeah.
not only
Right.
backfired on them like in terms of the public eye, but in terms of like the way that humanity is now going to be coming together. I mean, the timeline shift was so like palpable. It was so
Yeah.
feel it
Yeah.
in the moment it happened. It was like, oh my God, like
Well,
that was
yeah,
massive.
there's a
Yeah.
lot
Me too.
surrounding that
Yeah.
timeline shift, but let's talk about what led up to that. So first they tried to impeach Trump how many times? Then they
Right.
tried to imprison him. Then they
Yep.
literally tried to kill him. And then that failed. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're done. Biden drops out. They bring in, Kamala, and then now whatever. It's just kind of like the show must go on. But what happened whenever that shot missed? It was very interesting. For one, like I said in the movie Shooter that I just watched, 2007, Mark Wahlberg, it's all about a planned assassination attempt on the president in Pennsylvania where they miss the president. They
Right.
don't hit him, but they miss. And it lays it out how it's an inside job and how it's done and how there's just so much corruption that no one's actually in charge. Like there is no like lead agency because they're all trying to stab each other in the back because everyone has blood on their hands.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
um,
So that
so
movie is
yeah.
clearly they had some knowledge of of
Well,
the plan or of the future.
when I posted the clip from that movie on my TikTok, that's what got me permanently banned.
Well, there you go.
That was
Hit
the
the nail on the
one.
head.
That's crazy.
And guys, don't worry, we'll get to your questions here shortly. But so what happened whenever that missed? A lot of people felt a shift. And when we
Yeah.
interviewed Ben Gordon a few weeks ago, he said that he had the same feeling that when Trump was elected the first time, like he didn't understand what it was, but he just felt like things were going to be okay. And, you know, Ben Chastain did that video where he said he felt like it was a timeline convergence at that moment. And
Yeah.
he predicts that it's going to be a type of Mandela effect where people are going to start remembering details of the assassination attempt differently. And it's going to be a debate, just like the Kennedy assassination and 9/11. It's going to be a debate for the end of, you know, for the rest of the time. So, um, and then somebody else said it was a course correction of the timeline.
Yeah.
Either way, there's a lot of people tapping into some sort of timeline shift, convergence, merging, course correction. Regardless, a lot of us felt it. Even we felt and saw evidence of this when we were in Mount Shasta recently. There's just so many things that are pointing towards some sort of positive timeline.
Yeah.
And like my friend Katie in the chorus, you guys know who she is. She talks about, she uses the horse race analogy. She said it's like there's all these different, you know, it's a horse race, and now we finally have a lead horse. We know which horse is going to win now. And what I mean, it doesn't mean that that horse might not be injured and the jockey might be, you know, whatever. Like you could, it's not going to be perfect, but at least we know. Like I think we've solidified a positive timeline, and I
Yeah.
fully expect them to try and take away that momentum by another COVID attempt, another assassination attempt. And they're going to do something. We can
Yeah.
we can bank on that. That something else is going to be attempted, but at least we know. I think, like Ben said, if there's ever a window of opportunity to pour your love into a positive timeline, now is the time. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's if you're gonna meditate and set an intention, do it on that.
Well, if you want to go a little bit of a higher perspective here. Energy precedes everything else, right? And whatever is energetically, like the energies now are, let's say it this way, the energies on the planet right now are actually supporting humanity's ascension and let's just say the positive timeline, rather than before they kind of were more supporting um the more negative timeline. And that's why the cabal, that's why these groups have been able for thousands of years have been just smooth sailing, right? Because the energies were more in that level, and it also is connected to the level of overall consciousness of humanity. Those two things kind of go hand in hand, right? Well, now there's been such a massive awakening in the last 100 years, particularly in the last 50, particularly in the last 20, 15, 10, like the closer you get to now, like you just see this exponential awakening and raising in the energies of the planet, and but also chaos in recent years because of that, because it's been so fast that these new energies coming in, it's been so quick, and the dark control system has been fighting for dear life, trying to keep their stuff going, keep humanity manipulated, stay in power, all the rest of it, right? So that's why things are getting so crazy in recent years. And they're going to do everything they can, but I think there's divine protection and divine support, let's put it that way, for humanity's ascension and this
Right.
positive timeline. Because I mean, at the end of the day, what seems to be dark is that it only exists at the lower levels of, let's say, reality, and it serves a purpose to as a catalyst for growth and for change and for awakening. So if a planet is on this trajectory that's kind of like destined to raise up and ascend, the dark's only going to be allowed to do so much. And it's going to get to a certain
Right.
point in time, which is the time we're in right now, that it's going to be allowed to exist still, but it's going to be exposed to such a degree that we are going to awaken so much that we're gonna awaken not only to them, to what's going on, to the darkness, but we're going to awaken to ourselves as well and raise our own consciousness. And then that is what brings the true change, is we are bringing
Right.
the disclosure. Ultimately, we are the ones with the power, but we have to see what we've been in the whole time, see who these people are, see the agendas at play. And that's what's happening right now. And that's why I think not only was, you could say, Trump protected from being assassinated, which is important, but it was also important to see that play out, like see them attempting to kill him so that they're exposing themselves, right? And people can wake up and see
Right. They
not only
wanted,
that, but see who Trump really is, see who they really are, see what's really going on here.
well, they wanted people to see it. They were putting on a show.
They wanted
I
people to
mean,
see it, but they wanted him to actually be killed.
right.
They wanted it to actually work. Their worst nightmare happened instead, whereas it didn't work,
Well,
and they're
what I don't
really,
understand is like if they really wanted him to be killed, there's like much more sophisticated ways of doing it. Like there's a sniper
yeah.
rifle out there that's done by remote control and
Hmm.
with like perfect 100% accuracy, right? Up
Yeah.
to a mile away. That you
Yeah.
can mount that thing anywhere and you control it from an iPad. And you could like set in and lock in the target. I mean, there's so many ways.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. They wanted people to see. It had to be
Right.
like it's almost like the Alliance knew that it was going to happen and they let people watch it and see as like as far as it can go. And and if
Hmm.
people are
Well, the
saying,
way
well,
I
Trump,
look at it, not to cut you off here, but the way I look at it too, that goes back to what I said previously, is like they could, if they could have, they would have taken him out. They would have done it not just now. They would have done it 8 years ago, when he first got into office. Uh, because I mean, look at how badly they didn't want him being president for all that time.
right.
Even after he was supposedly not the president, that's all they would talk. That's all they almost would talk about, was how Trump is evil. Oh my God.
Well,
It's like, why are you guys still talking? Well, because he's still a threat. Now he's an even bigger threat because he's a threat to get in again. And if they could have taken him out, they have, yeah, like you said, there's such advanced technology out there. They could have done it in a split second at any point in time, but they specifically had to make it look, for one, like a lone gunman and very public, and have a plausible, oh, look, it was this kid, even though he's in a BlackRock commercial, like, and all this other, and there's people shorting the stock right before it happened, no, it was just this random kid that just was disgruntled, and yeah,
well,
somehow got that close with a gun on a freaking roof, like, which is physically impossible, but somehow that happened. We just dropped the ball, and they had to make it look like that, but still they could have like used some kind of advanced technology to still take him out if they could have, while still having that kid seemingly shoot. But guess what? Trump's being protected. That's the only explanation that really can be why that didn't happen, because
and
they're not being allowed to do that.
there's a lot of people that say that you can't fake that reaction from Trump, and there's a lot of things that seem real about it.
Hmm.
Well, I like to use the analogy of the Blair Witch Project. If you guys remember that movie, if you watched the making of that movie, they sent the actors out into the woods and they didn't know what was going to happen. They were camping in the middle of the night. They
Hmm.
didn't know what was going to happen because they wanted their reaction to be real. Even though it was staged, even though it was a movie and it was being filmed, the actors didn't know what was going to happen. And that's
Yeah.
the only way to make it believable and to sell it. Trump couldn't have known exactly when it was going to happen or if it was going to happen. And
Hmm.
Jace, we've been going on for a while. Did you want to add to this?
I get the feeling that you're to build off what you're saying, that he was given some kind of heads up, whether it was from the Alliance, humans, his higher self, ETs, angels, God, whatever you want to call it, that he was made aware that something was going to happen, but that he didn't have to worry, that he was going to be protected. That's kind of the message I got, but also in terms of the advanced technology we know is available, like we know, back in the 60s and 70s and probably earlier, the CIA had like pen guns and things like that. And I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
theories of like looking at people in the background, and like people are like, oh, this person looks like they had a mini projectile kind of thing.
Hmm.
Knowing all that, it kind of adds even more to the miracle of the divine intervention that it was, because maybe they did try all those things
Maybe they
and
did.
all of them didn't work. And like that kind of got into my head when I saw the 3D model of like, if it was, crooks that made all 6, 7 shots, like, we thought Trump dodged one bullet, but when you look at the model, he literally dodged like 6 or 7 in like
Hmm.
all around him.
Yeah.
So that made me go, oh wow, like they're downplaying just how much of a miracle this was. Plus, knowing what they really have, like that could have been a major miracle.
Right. And trained snipers don't miss like that, at least the good ones.
No. that was point blank range.
Right,
That like I
exactly.
watched like 4 different videos of like trained snipers, guys that worked in the military, and they're like, what happened was like either this guy would not have missed, or like, for one, the fact that this guy was even allowed to be. I watched like 3 different videos of guys that knew for a fact like this guy was allowed to be where he was. There's no possible way that would have happened with the Secret Service and with the thorough, intense, um, you know, job that they do with making sure no one can get within a very wide range of
So
anywhere close to president with a weapon or anything like
so
that.
Beth,
And it was point blank range. So if the guy was
right.
like anywhere close to somewhat of a decent shot, Trump would
Real
have
quick, real quick, Tyler, before you read the question, did you guys see David Wilcock talk about his dream of him literally moving the bullet
Yeah.
like a month before it ever happened?
I did. I saw
That's
it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like
He had the dream
like,
before it happened, and then that happened. Yeah.
like almost to the T. And then, you know, the
Wow.
prophet talking about it happening. Anyways, like it kind of adds to the divine intervention.
Yeah,
Like
of course, I believe
literally the
that.
bullet could have been moved by like, you know, an angel like
Oh yeah.
around.
I
Like
Well,
mean,
there
think
could have
about it. I
been
mean, these higher beings have, I mean, many of them, you know, their technology, we think of technology as something external to us. Well, our best technology is our own selves, right?
right.
It's our own
Well,
bodies, our own consciousness. They have that tapped down, like turned on, right? To a very high ability. So they can literally, they can be like, all right, this bullet in midair is going to go just a little bit, and it's just going to nick exactly the top of his ear instead of hitting him in the head, which is what it was
I mean,
original trajectory, right?
the movie Angels in the Outfield is proof of that.
oh, dude, I forgot about
Right,
that movie.
exactly. That's a
I
great
mean,
movie.
it's exactly I mean, it depicts what
Yeah,
you're describing.
that's what
Yeah,
happened in the movie. Exactly. There you
100%.
But
go.
Wow.
I wanna read something that Beth Noya, she's in the chat right now. She actually commented on Facebook and I screenshotted it about the timeline shift. She said, guys, I totally saw the timeline potential and then the shift. Because many of us have higher frequencies and pure heart, I believe God helped a better timeline be given. I felt it
Hmm.
that day that it was a massive shift, almost like time travelers went back to the huge point in time that would have been the worst outcome for all humanity if he was killed, whether you like him or not. The ramifications and consequential results would have devastated our future. The series of events that would have followed would have been more than hell on earth. Prayers for keeping us safe, healthy, and happy and united. Um, we've been given a huge gift. So I agree. Like, what would have happened if he was taken off the game board? Like, I don't care. Like, he's not a savior, but it's what he stands for. And there's an energetic imprint there that is literally impacting the collective consciousness
Hmm.
globally, globally.
Right.
And if that's removed from the plane from the game board, then what happens? So,
Right. That whole
um,
problem reaction solution that would have ensued from that event, you can just only speculate and imagine what that could have been. It could have been really,
right.
really crazy. And the deep state could have taken full advantage of that and
Um,
implemented, just use your imagination, right?
one last thing I want to cover, and then we'll dive into the questions. So, you know, if for those who don't know Jace, who's with us today, Jace from Cosmic Origins, our Conscious Crypto Academy, he's an expert on cryptocurrency, in my opinion, and you've been covering it for years now. But something that Trump said was huge. It was monumental regarding cryptocurrency and what he would do if he was elected. And first thing he would do is fire I already forgot his name.
Gary
What's his name?
Gensler.
Yeah, of
Gary Gensler.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But maybe you can fill us in on what your take is on that and why that statement was so massive.
Yeah, yeah. So for those that didn't hear about this, Trump basically did a mini rally at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, Tennessee. So he was like the main speaker. He was the most popular one, and lots of people came just for him. And there's a lot of other people there too, Vivek, RFK Jr. But what Trump said was, I'll give you the highlights. He said he's going to fire the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, on day one, who is, you know, the guy that Biden has had in that's been attacking crypto for the last 4 years. He's the one who opened the case against Ripple and XRP, which is, you know, what we really focus on in our school. And he has been the focus of the attack on crypto. So Trump saying he's going to take him out day one, the crowd was like, just went wild. It was like a standing ovation right away.
Yeah.
And then he said even more, wild things, which was that, crypto and Bitcoin would go to the moon. He literally said that. He said that it would eventually most likely surpass the market cap of gold, which I think was kind of a big wake up call for a lot of people who were in fear about cryptocurrency, because a lot of people don't understand the difference between a CBDC, which is a central banking digital currency, which is essentially what China has. That would be a state-run, totally private controlled thing. And so he said that under his presidency, he would never allow a CBDC, which is massive as well. So crypto is decentralized, CBDCs are centralized. That's
the
main
exact opposite of a crypto, actually.
Exactly.
It's diametrically opposed to everything crypto stands for and what it is.
Exactly.
Yep. CBDC is.
And he said that we would be that America would be the crypto capital of the world, that we would be, the ones to foster all the innovation. And, he even dropped a little bit of, I think, a seed of consciousness for the Bitcoin crowd, because even though I'm super into crypto, I'm not the biggest fan of Bitcoin itself. Like, I respect it as the original crypto, but, when you start learning about crypto, you realize like Bitcoin is becoming an outdated technology, with the power consumption mainly is a big thing. So he kind of dropped that seed to the audience. He's like, if we are going to become the crypto capital of the world, we're going to need, he's like, we did the math, we need twice the current energy grid capacity of the United States in order to be the Bitcoin, leaders. And so to me, that was like seeding that to them, but also seeding the possibility of free energy technology. Because if we have free energy technology, then that problem goes out the window, right? So there was a lot of really exciting things. I might be missing one or two if you guys think of some other ones that he mentioned.
Well, I just think it's important to stress the fact that he even said it and mentioned it at all. And the crowd erupted when he mentioned firing Gary Gensler. And it's just, I think it's big because a lot of people have invested in crypto, and it's in particular XRP, XLM, the ones that we've been like championing for a while. And I think that, it's just like silver. There's such an artificial suppression on it. I mean, it's eventually something's going to break. The dam is going to break at some point. And, whatever that looks like, who knows, or when that's going to happen, who knows. But I definitely think that there's something to it. And there's a reason that they have been attacking it for the past 4 years, because it really is part of the higher timeline. Maybe crypto isn't the end all be all answer. A lot of people have a problem with anything that's, connected with the artificial intelligence. Maybe it's a stepping stone, but it's something. And it's going, and, there's a lot of evidence, I would even say, in my opinion, that indicates that there's even extraterrestrial technologies behind cryptocurrency, including some of the coins that are literally named after planets that we don't even know about, and star systems that we're unaware of. Why are the coins named after them? There's people and channelers that say, well, they're named after them because it's actually those groups involved. It's their coin here on Earth, right? And it's kind of like it's a way of like monitoring which groups actually have their hand in the game. I don't know. It's all very interesting to me. So I definitely think it's a stepping stone towards a brighter future. And obviously they're going to try and weaponize it and make it centralized, which
they're trying to.
Can't happen. Yeah,
it's not going to work, but they're trying their hardest to. And that's the reason for the SEC's bogus lawsuit, is to buy them more time to get their own controlled CBDCs and control system in place, so that they can then bring that online and go, oh, look, we got this now. Sorry, XRP and Ripple and all this other stuff. We already got this now. It's all about stalling, because they know they can't stop it, but they're trying to stall it as much as long as possible, so that they can bring on their own control system online.
I think that's where, building off what you're saying, Aaron, the dark is also unconsciously serving the light. They're not intentionally serving the light, but they are, in terms of what you're saying of drawing this out, and how, a lot of the kind of, there's a group of kind of posters called the Ripple Riddlers, Mr. Pool, Bearable Guy, that I think are associated with the Q team. A lot of them alluded that 2018 was supposed to be the moment that this stuff popped off and that these new systems came online, but it was extended. And I think, part of it was what you're saying, the dark extending it, but I think the light also allowed that, because on the 3D level, this is, the restructuring of the financial system. But on the higher dimensional level, I think the true purpose of this is to be a wealth transfer to basically star seeds and conscious awakened beings. It doesn't have to just be star seeds, but people who are feeling called to this from spirit, who are listening to spirit, listening to God, hearing the answer, and then having the courage to actually go out and begin that mission. And those people, like pretty much everybody that I worked with in my academy, has had a mission that they're like, okay, a being came to me in a dream and was like, we need you to fund your mission. So you need to buy XRP because this is going to fund your mission. And that's what this Brandon Briggs, the prophet who predicted the Trump shooting in the ear, he said the same thing. He said that God told him XRP was going to be this wealth transfer. It was going to go to $10,000, blah, blah, blah. Regardless of like the specifics of it, I think really it's about not even necessarily the war against the banking cartels, like on the surface it is, but what it's really about is the fruition of the fourth density heart chakra energies that we're moving into, and being able to fund those and being able to create a safe haven, or what you could even call a breakaway civilization on the planet while the dark is playing out their war games. So I think the dark is going to continue playing their war games. Best case situation, we do get world peace when Trump comes back in. But I think that what crypto is going to do is allow us to build civilizations that are self-sufficient outside of society, that we can be in building the new earth while the old earth is doing its thing, whatever their free will ends up directing them towards. So
yeah, I mean,
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
And something else Daryl James was told back in 2005 when he was talking to Robert, his executive officer, when he was made aware of Q in 2005, he also said that they had an end goal, but things were delayed. He goes, it gets delayed, but that's all they could do is delay it. They couldn't stop it. And I think we're in that delay period right now. And whether it was allowed or it was just inevitable, whatever, I think he's right. I think that's all they could do is just delay it. I don't think we would be having these conversations if it didn't already happen, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
No, absolutely.
I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like the fact that they were able to talk about it means that it already happened.
Yeah. At least on the quantum level, like
Yeah, on
even
a
if
quantum level,
3D sense if
yeah,
it hasn't fully
right.
manifested, but
Okay,
yeah.
so let's dive into
Yeah.
some of these questions that we've been ignoring the whole time. All
Sorry,
right,
guys.
going back to the beginning. Question: which agencies are more straightforward and trustable than the others, like NASA, CIA, Naval Intelligence, Space Force, Air Force Intelligence, Vatican, Royals, Freemasons, and so on? I don't know if that's actually possible to answer because there's so much backstabbing and collusion, and I mean, just I don't even know how to describe it, but I don't think that any one is more trustable than the other. I think there's good people in each one of those that are fighting for what's right, and I think that's what we would label as the white hats. Um, but as a whole, I don't think any one of them, even the Navy, who is, apparently behind all this, I'm sure there's a dark faction of the Navy as well, and Space Force. Um, if you
Yeah.
guys want to add to that,
There's
you can.
compartments to everything, and this is what we need. People need to understand. Okay, we've been lied to about basically everything, right? And even to the degree that like we've been lied to about how the government works, how all of these agencies and all these programs, as we were told as if they're just one homogenous thing, and that's could not be farther from the truth. What they actually are a whole bunch of separate compartments that are all fall under the label CIA, all fall under the label NSA, all fall under the label NASA, even Space Force,
Right.
all these different things. I mean, the government, there is no the government. There's a whole bunch of separate compartments, and there's levels of clearance you need and there's if you're in the right group, then you have access to the higher technologies and all these kind of and different agendas going on. And there are both, you could say, good and bad players in these compartments, and some of them are controlled, you could say, by the good, some are controlled by the bad.
Right.
There's this kind of internal war going on, and there's these different agendas playing out.
Well,
What I do think is that the light is winning hugely now, and the dark's being exposed, and so all these all the dark compartments are now kind of being exposed and kind of freaking out right now and overplaying their hands and all this kind of stuff. And
I think it's
there is compartmentalization. So like everything is need to know. And like a lot of these compartments, almost no one outside of them even knows they exist. They're that deep black and just like off the books completely. And if you try a lot, like even the president, the president is not who we're told, like he's way, way, way down on the food chain. There's at least 35 levels of clearance above the president, which most people don't even know that. And that's why former presidents, when they try to get access to a lot of these programs, are denied outright, and they get furious. And then sometimes they get taken out, like JFK, when they're a threat, and they tried to with Trump, obviously. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. So I don't think it's, like you said, you can't broad brushstroke. All CIA is bad. All FBI even is bad. There's a lot of corruption, obviously, and dark stuff going on in there. But there's good
and
guys.
what happens too is there's breakaways from the CIA. So there's people that let's just say that you're privy to some knowledge that a group of people is doing within the CIA that you don't agree with, right? And you and some other people get together and you almost have your own private little agency that has no label, that has no name, that no one knows about except for you and a couple of buddies.
Exactly.
And I mean, and it's like, and that just keeps branching
off.
It keeps splintering off. And then before you know it, there are so many unnamed entities out there in private, and they become, some of them are private corporations, and they have shell companies that they hide behind and things like that.
Right.
It's really like Solomon Berg, may he rest in peace, but his interviews with Carrie Cassidy, when she had like such a very matter of fact vision of the dark, and she thought she knew who they were, and he couldn't stress enough. He's like, no, you don't know who they are. He goes, they don't even know who they are. He goes, no one is in charge. Everyone is so splintered, and everyone they're all fighting each other. And the things that we see happening under the surface are us being caught in the middle of this shadow war that's playing out that nobody has any idea that's even happening. Yeah. And a lot of these buildings being burned down and these earthquakes and all this stuff are part of that. And, the weather wars and manipulation. So he could not stress enough. He's like, there are so many groups that are all trying to fight each other to be in charge, because no one is actually in charge. And so that's
the way of the dark. The dark is the chaos and the finding order of the dominance, chaos. And before you move on to the next question real quick, my thoughts on that, two things. I agree, generalized, there's no all good, all bad, but it does remind me of Q talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I remember them saying along the lines of that the NSA was created by white hats to take tabs on the CIA and basically the crimes against humanity that were going on. And that even though all this stuff, Patriot Act and a lot of this other stuff seemed really bad, and there was probably bad stuff definitely mixed in, but that a lot of that was to take tabs on these guys. And that was part of Snowden too, and how Snowden, as being portrayed as a good guy, was a CIA defect ratting on the NSA to make them look like the bad guys, so that everyone was putting their fingers at the NSA instead of the CIA. There's definitely mixed in both, right?
And a Hollywood movie gets made about Snowden. I mean, come on, they don't do that unless
But that's still one example of how convoluted it can be. I mean, how just messy it can get. And it
reminds me too of,
but that makes sense because of the NSA existing and collecting everything, even though it sounds scary. Oh, they're collecting all my stuff. But it would make sense the white hats would have done that so that they have literally everything on the bad guys on the deep state.
Right. And I believe that it was originally the DIA, because that's what Kennedy created, the Defense Intelligence Agency. And he was trying to blanket all of the three-letter agencies under one corporation, so they can, there's there's transparency, right? To eliminate the secrecy. Well, they didn't like that. I mean, if you don't believe me, the memo is out there. You could even Google it. But he wrote a letter to the director of the CIA. He was like, we need transparency. And they didn't like that, and they took him out, obviously. But so I'm sure it started as a DIA and it branched off into the NSA. Who knows? But it was probably the positive effort in that.
One more thing I want to say on that real quick. Tyler, you were talking about the shell companies and how like there's branching off within the agencies, but even like private corporations and contractors. Are you guys familiar with Ingersoll Lockwood?
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
So like that would be one on the light side that I see where the guy who made Ingersoll Lockwood was one of the original founding members of DHS, which whatever DHS is now is a different story, but he was like the main guy that founded it. And that goes back all the way to, I mean, Ingersoll Lockwood is the author of 1900, The Last President, of the Baron
Right.
Trump time travel novels, and that really brings it like full circle. And if you go to that website and look at their
That
stuff,
website is
it's pretty
crazy.
mind blowing. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of people write it off as just being nonsense, but like literally the guy who runs it, and you can do the research and find the name. I'm not going to say his name, but you can find it. But he is the co-founder of DHS. So
Right.
there's something to it.
And did
There's
you
definitely
hear that?
something to that.
Have you heard the theory that Baron Trump is actually Princess Diana's son?
I have
Oh,
heard that.
I
I wouldn't
have
doubt it.
not.
And like the
I wouldn't.
pictures, like some of them, like the picture of her young and him young is like, okay. I
It-
mean, they look the same.
Wow.
So
possible.
They always describe him as a really special person, really special
right.
kid. Like they use that term a
Well,
lot, and it makes me think like they know,
I
what he
believe,
is.
Right.
I believe him and Ivanka are ETs. Dude, I don't care what anyone says. You can laugh at me. If you look at
Right.
them and just like, they say they look like us, but we wouldn't know the difference. Watch their mannerisms, look at their bone structure and the way they move. And there's just different things about them. I mean, maybe not full on ET, but hybrid. Like there's some
At
genetics in
least
there from
hybrid,
like
probably.
something else. Yeah.
Melania
Yeah.
too, I think she also
Yeah.
has got that look.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I made that meme years ago whenever Trump's son, what's his name? His other son, that asked him if UFOs were
Eric,
real. What did you
Eric
say?
Trump,
Eric.
Eric Trump?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Remember he did that interview and he asked his dad about UFOs if they were real.
Yeah.
And
I don't
then
remember
I made the meme and he said, "Yeah, your mom's a Pleiadian." And
that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And he
Okay,
played it
so
off as if, oh, I don't, I've heard things, but I don't know.
right.
I'll look into it. You have to like. Anyways, Abby Lynn just said Baron is a hybrid. I think he's at least a hybrid for sure.
Right.
And she
And
said Melania is Pleiadian. That I wouldn't be surprised if Melania is a full on ET and then Baron's like a hybrid.
She also said Biden said he had a professor
Biden,
named Dr. Ingersoll. I didn't
Dr.
hear that. That's
Ingersoll.
crazy.
I didn't know
no.
that either. There you go.
And Abby, if you weren't here at the beginning, we were talking about your Egypt tour in March of 2025. There's 5 spots available, guys. If you want to join Abby and myself and Tony Rodriguez and Lily Nova and Anne-Marie Morales and a bunch of other people in Egypt in
Wow. You guys are all
2020.
going. That's amazing.
Yeah, in
It's gonna be fun.
2025. So it's going to be a lot of fun. There's 5 spots left. That link is below in the description. We hope to see you there. So
I went with Carrie Cassidy
right.
last year and my partner Amanda. And that
Okay,
was
question
neat.
2. I
Question 2.
absolutely loved your webinar a while back in which you discussed Hollow Earth. Do you believe all planets are hollow with caves closer to the surface, our inner Earth as well? Yeah, I would say absolutely. I would say
Yeah.
that's highly likely. Obviously, we can't answer that
At least
accurately.
most,
Right.
I would say. I would say I don't know for sure, but I can't remember who, but I heard someone who's basically like an insider, I want to say, said that is how planets naturally form. They just naturally, when they're forming, that's a effect of how they naturally form. It creates all these giant caves and cavernous
I'm looking for like a
inside
lava
the
rock.
crust, but
Because
then
like
it's
a lava rock.
right,
Yeah.
like a lava rock, like a
Yeah.
giant lava rock, but it's a hollow sphere. It just forms like that so that the inside is basically completely
It's like the
hollow.
universal template for the planet.
Right,
Um,
right. It's like somehow the energy like just forms in a sphere, but not a completely solid one like we're told, like that, right? But the
Yeah,
crust, it's
get
just
air
the crust,
pockets and stuff forming.
right?
Right.
So we're told like there's the crust, and then there's all this magma that's just all like, and that apparently that's a complete lie. It's actually a completely hollow, but there is a sun at the very center, an energy, you know.
Speaking
Well,
of, have
did
you
you
guys
guys-
seen have you seen the Godzilla King Kong movies? Because they're
Yes,
like
I was just
Tyler
getting
was
ready
just
to
about
say
to go
that.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
so
dude.
good.
It
There's so much.
tells you everything. It shows you Hollow Earth. It shows you that there's a portal at the poles, and in the new movie, they literally find an advanced civilization that speaks telepathically, that has crystal pyramids in the center of our Earth that are actually responsible that create gravity. they're responsible for the gravity. The crystal pyramids are, and there's just wild stuff in the movie. But then they depict a bunch of portals from the inner Earth to different places on the surface. I mean, come on, like they're fine. They have to
Yeah.
hide it behind Godzilla King Kong movie, so people don't actually take it serious.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
mean, in
But
my
they're doing what they
opinion,
always do. Put
right,
disclosure in plain sight in movies and shows. They've been doing
right,
this for a long
I
time.
like how
Like,
they showed too that they were using like technology at that one point in the ocean to enter where they would create, like in the previous movie, they went to Antarctica to find the
mhm.
the hole that goes in, but then they were creating their own vortex that would then go in, which was
right, yeah, creating
Yeah.
their own portals, yeah, in the
Yeah.
ocean.
Mhm.
Um, Next question, Tyler, please do a webinar on your Patreon of the history of the secret space program. We need a synopsis for newbies to get up to speed. Maybe we'll do that one after my presentation in October. This way it'll pretty much be built already. And then once I present it there, we could modify it and turn it into a webinar. Because I don't have much time on stage, but we can really make it an awesome webinar. So we'll definitely do that.
For sure.
Um, Let's see. What
Um,
has Jermaine said? The timeline is accelerating and jerking, which defined as a rate of change accelerating all over the damn place. Yeah, it is. uh, Any question? If I remember right, in Daryl James' testimony, he says Robert mentions, my understanding from that interview was that Q info was relevant up until that long break, then when the drops came back. Yeah, so at some point Q disappeared and then came back. And I think everyone, even the diehard Q people, agreed that it wasn't the same anymore. Like there it wasn't the same energy.
yeah.
And Daryl was told that it was going to be basically infiltrated. Like they were going to go away, be infiltrated, but it was going to be allowed, and they were going to let them come in and take over, so they could basically keep your enemies closer, keep tabs on them. And then the
Mhm.
drops continued. He said a lot of the drops that were like cheerleading, a lot of the people, it turned into more of it went from comms to cheerleading, and like the cheerleading
Right.
type of drops weren't necessarily. That
It's just a
was yeah,
completely different feel. I mean, it's
right.
obvious. It's at least a different person posting. Completely different. Yeah.
Right.
So, and he was told that. So there you go. That's most likely what happened.
Question. Will you do a deep dive on Australia, where it all began, the solar plexus of Earth, original people, ancient star knowledge, Pine Gap, Yowies? So
Mhm.
much to delve into. That would be an interesting one. You know, it would be a fun one to do a deep dive on because we'll be learning a lot too. I've read some books. I know the Theatre Uber Prophecy has a really interesting history of Australia and the Aboriginal people, and they even talk about one thing specifically that stands out to me: the cattail, or they call them the oh man, not the cattail, something black. There's some sort of indigenous plant in Australia that actually was brought off from off planet. It was brought here to so along with the kangaroos. The kangaroos didn't
Mhm.
originally they didn't originate here either. So they
Mhm.
had to bring something. They had to bring their food, but they couldn't get it to grow. It's a black something. Uh, I can't remember the name of it. But
Remember
anyway,
you told me about that. Yeah.
yeah, in the book they talk about it. So, but then by the time that they finally got that crop to take, the kangaroos had already developed a new diet and they quit eating it. Um, anyway, I didn't really do that justice, but it's just something that reminded me of it.
I think there's lots of things that were brought here that aren't
Right.
indigenous, like well, marijuana, suppose cannabis. Supposedly, many people have said,
From the Pleiades, the two dog. So
right.
cannabis
Period.
That's why it's called cannabis
yeah,
because it's
canna
yeah,
means canine and bis means two. And there's a two dog star in the Pleiades constellation, and they believe it came from that star
yeah,
and it was a gift to humanity.
right, exactly. There's many things you get a big clue to their origin from the name of it alone.
Question: do you think the government elite will continue with power outages and things of that nature as we continue getting closer to the election? Yes. I actually think that they're going to squeeze us like a sponge into the election. I think they're going to,
Yeah,
prices are going to go up. I think they're going to do whatever they can to
They're
make it
desperate.
miserable for us because they know that they're like lost. So
They're
they're like,
desperate.
well, yeah.
They're in like beyond desperation mode right now. So just
And
think about who these people are. They're in beyond desperation mode. They're going to do literally everything they can possibly do leading up to the election, at least.
right. So
So
I would imagine it's going to be a
get
rough
ready.
ride. It's going
Get
to be a
ready.
rough ride for sure. Like
Yeah.
in Florida right now, they just raised the insurance premium again.
Yeah.
And the insurance companies are moving out, and in areas that don't even get hit with hurricanes are, the insurance premiums are like 7,000 a year. It's like almost unaffordable now. It's like another mortgage payment just to insure your home, and it's insane. And it's like, okay, something's got to give. It's like the bubble is about to pop. But speaking of power outages, there was also a power outage at the start of the Olympics, was there not? Or in Paris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when did that happen? What was that? Do you guys
It
remember?
happened at literally exactly 2300 hours local time, which is what made me think that it was something planned and not just a spontaneous event. Because there was a little countdown. You can see it hit 2300 hours and then boom, it went out. And I think it was out for 10 minutes in most places, but up to an hour in other places is what I heard.
Didn't everything go out but like one church or something?
The church, yeah, the church was still
So
lit
come
up.
on,
Yeah.
there you go. Like,
And there was a meme of like Jesus being the one that shut the power down, is like buddy
right.
Jesus.
Right. But the symbolism of that, is like
Oh,
clearly
and
it
then
was
there was the IT outage
Yeah, the
on our way
CrowdStrike
to
outage.
Shasta. Yeah,
Yeah,
which
so
was the go ahead,
that
Jess.
was
I was gonna say, like,
CrowdStrike was
think
involved.
CrowdStrike, yeah.
yeah, so the CrowdStrike outage, I think that was supposed to be probably that was probably supposed to be the main attack that they were planning. And I think that they expected Trump to be dead for both that and for the Olympics. And it was just
Yeah.
going to be wham, 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 like going
Right.
deeper and deeper and more punches to the face. But I think they had to rethink things. And so maybe it was already kind of set in place, the motions of it, but they kind of mitigated the full aspect, or maybe the alliance came in and were able to kind of mitigate the full thing from happening. But
Yeah.
imagine
Right.
if he was dead at the time that happened, it would have been chaos. Like,
Well, things
Right.
change in the fog of war, and there's also Q drops talking about CrowdStrike, which is interesting. If you
is there?
oh yeah, after there's at
Yeah.
least
Oh,
one or
yeah.
two where they were talking about basically encouraging us to look into CrowdStrike, and the CrowdStrike
Zelensky call.
servers. Yeah, the Zelensky call, the CrowdStrike servers are in Ukraine.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so much there to unpack. It was pretty obvious that something was going on, but
And it
I
happened on the anniversary of the Zelensky's call where he mentioned it, where Trump mentioned
Oh,
CrowdStrike. It was literally like
there you
And-
go.
on the same date.
well, Trump was trying to inquire about the server in Ukraine, and that's why they say they tried to impeach him the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the next question?
Oh, something we didn't mention about the Trump. So after he gets shot in the ear, he stands up and says "fight, fight, fight" 3 times, and that's in the Q drop.
Yeah,
Fight,
there's
fight,
a Q
fight.
Q drop
Yeah.
that says
That's
fight,
another
fight,
one.
fight,
Fight,
with
fight.
a photo of him with his fist up. Not
Yep.
even joking. Like
Yep.
it's not the same photo, but it's another photo where he has his fist
So
up and it says fight, fight, fight. So
I mean, how many coincidences before you got to just admit
Yeah.
right,
there's
right.
something huge going on here?
Come on, there's got to be more
Some,
questions. Here we go.
CrowdStrike, not the FBI, examined the DNC servers per Russiagate. In other words, CrowdStrike covered up the Seth Rich murder. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Seth Rich was taken out, and then they covered it up.
Question: did you guys think the people seated behind Trump acted very bizarre? Some people didn't even flinch, as though they
Oh, yeah.
never heard the shots. Well, the one girl ended up being, I don't know if she was the director of the FBI, but she
Yeah.
was found out to work for the FBI, the one who was like filming.
And she
So,
smirks. She like
yeah.
smirks and pulls out her
Mhm.
phone.
so a number of
Yep.
people behind him were aware, which Vincent Fusca was
there.
wearing a shirt of a magazine cover of the Kennedy assassination that says like how to dodge a bullet or
Yep.
something like that on his
George
shirt.
Magazine
Yeah,
shirt,
yeah.
how to dodge a bullet on his shirt. Come
Yeah,
on.
so
I mean, come on.
like
And he
what-
called out Vincent Fusca at the last rally. Did you see that? He tried to invite him up
Did.
on the stage, but he was
Right.
like,
You're
So
right.
I mean, that's how you know that they knew. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way he
Right.
wears that shirt. For
Right.
one, he was like such a prominent figure in the background. He stayed standing the whole
He
time.
was so calm the whole time too.
His
He knew
shirt
it
had
was,
the magazine cover, How to
yeah.
Dodge a Bullet. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know what it all means or how it all works. I don't understand this time travel game, but there's definitely something occurring.
Can we talk about that
Right.
for a sec too? Like how much Trump was changed in that moment? Like I've heard a lot of people say like Trump was reborn in that moment, and I really do feel that moment when he dropped to his knees and they actually got the picture of him on the ground with the blood. I feel like what really struck home for him that he's been saying in all these rallies is how not just, Vincent Fusco and those guys behind him didn't react, but how the whole crowd of the thousands in front of him, nobody ran. Like I'm sure maybe a few people did, but like everyone stayed,
Basically,
like they were
right.
there. And I think that like moved him so much and like probably polarized him so much more into the positive and the loving. And it feels like now, you know how Trump's always been snarky and like picking on people with names and stuff in like a funny way, and in a way that makes sense when you're calling out pedophiles and stuff.
Right.
But what I really thought was amazing in terms of his heart capacity was how he didn't immediately go after attacking the Secret Service. He was actually thanking them and commending them and being like, they did a great job. Like, did you see those guys jump on me? Like, he's like, I know that there's a lot of criticism, but they really did great, and we should thank them because they saved my life and blah blah blah. Whereas I feel like old Trump might have like kind of called that out a little more and been a little more hostile towards that. And I feel like that's part of the shift that we're going through. And something that I've gotten as a download recently is that we're learning how to move further into love and away from the frequency of fighting a war for love, but of total acceptance of what is going on. And what
Right.
my guides were showing me was how Jesus did not take up arms against the Romans. He did not preach to take up arms against the Romans. Whereas like people like Judas were like, no, we have to overthrow the Romans. Like this is what we have to do to save our people. And Jesus was
Right.
like, no, it's not the war without, it's the war within. That
Right.
doesn't matter. That's all really just a distraction. Like,
Right.
yes, maybe it is moving us in a general good direction, but if we want to really do the inner work, it's about looking within and going, okay, where can we find total acceptance? Like, and a quote in the Law of One that really resonated for me was along the lines of that one of the quickest ways that we can polarize into the heart chakra and service to others is to accept unconditional love at the cost of any distortion of hostility or bellicosity. So where we may be tempted to fight kind of a holy war in the name of the people we love, yes, that might be that can be good, but to be even more pure in love would to just be accept and love all and not try to fight and create hostility even against those that we perceive as our enemies. And that's what Jesus taught. And I feel like that's where Trump is starting to move towards.
Right. Yeah.
Beautifully
I
said.
mean,
I agree.
the fact that there were no wars under his presidency
Hmm.
says something, and I think we can expect more of that if obviously if he gets in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say something else before I forgot. I guess it doesn't matter now. Um, Tyler, do you believe you were a super soldier in the SSP or a participant? Could you go further into your experiences that make you believe that to be the case? Um, I definitely have some recall, some very real recall, not just like, oh, I had this weird dream. I've talked about it a few times, but I picked up my book again. I've been writing again, so it'll be told in detail in my book. But for the sake of not taking up a lot of time, it's almost impossible to just kind of brush over right now. But I do believe, I don't think I was a super soldier. I mean, that term has been so sensationalized now. I don't really like using it, but I definitely believe that on some level, I was a participant, whether it was on another timeline or um, a real abduction. I don't know. I'm still trying to unpack all that. If you guys were at the conference, you heard my presentation on a world within a world, and it was basically um, does the secret space program occur in another dimension was the whole question I was asking. And I came up with a lot of interesting information. I can't wait to upload that presentation on our channel because I think it was I think I came up with some really interesting stuff. But moving on. Lakeside Laura says, question, Tyler, do you like to play pool? Yes.
Pool's fun.
Question, what are your thoughts that on 7/13 humanity had a sort of 20 back? I don't know. So on July 13th, humanity had a 20 back?
Nah, I don't
Was
Maybe
think that.
metaphorically, like symbolically in a way.
Yeah, but not like literally. There was a
But we did entertain the theory of time travelers and
Mind
angels
you.
in the outfield kind of thing happening.
right.
So
No, 100%. I will go on
Mhm.
record and say there are time travelers involved in
Yeah.
in basically all agencies now. I think that's one of the early technologies that was highly sought after, and that's why they were even fighting each other to get a hold of that technology. And then simultaneously, other groups were discovering it on their own. And whenever they started making these jumps all over the planet, nobody knew who was making these jumps, and that was what was creating the tears in the space-time continuum and creating all these Mandela effects. And there's no way to know which jump created which Mandela effect, and it just became like such a
Mhm.
hodgepodge of people, like this temporal war that literally is like destroying the very fabric of our reality, and it's created quite a
Yeah.
mess that's almost irreparable. And
It's apparently not just affecting our planet, but it's affecting
right,
many other civilizations, many other realities, many other dimensions. It's
right.
affecting a lot more than just us. And I think that's one of the many reasons there are many other beings here helping us because it's affecting them. Not just the nuclear stuff or the other like the time, the rips in the space-time continuum and all the shenanigans that's causing. I think there's lots of groups helping because they're like, we have to stop this like cancer that's going on that's
Well,
affecting all of this other stuff in the universe
in the
essentially.
sands of time, they even say that time travel technology has been banned in
Hmm.
other parts of the galaxy because of the
What do you
damage it
think?
creates. Yeah.
Exactly.
It is basically like you cannot use time travel technology in the more advanced civilizations because there's no reason for the technology if you understand your true potential. The technology
Mhm.
is damaging the
it's
universe.
dangerous.
Like
Yeah, it's
it's
very dangerous.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just
Yeah.
everybody. There's such a ripple effect that occurs. And the thing is that nobody gets it right on the first try. So while they're learning, all the damage
Mhm.
they're creating and trying to attempt to use the technology.
Yeah, or at least the type of technology they're using is causing damage, or the way they're using it. Because there are many ETs that their technology, they're constantly traveling through time, and their crafts are
Oh,
constantly traveling through time, but it's doing it in a way that is
so
safe and is
that
not
Yeah,
re
causing
more in
damage.
like alignment with divine law
mm,
rather than
It
3D humans just trying
right,
to fuck
right.
shit up.
We just do stuff and don't even think, oh, whatever the consequences. I'm just, these groups like we're talking about, like they don't think about the damage. They don't care. Most of them are psychopaths. They
and
just they just do what they want to do. Damn, the
it comes
consequences.
down to using technology that they don't understand
They
also.
don't understand it
They
mostly
have
too.
no idea how this Stargate was created, what it even takes to make a Stargate work, or
Right,
whatever it is. But then you figure out how to use it and you just haphazardly using it, not really understanding it. I mean, that can
right,
send you down a pretty detrimental path. But that
right.
reminds me of that experience that happened to me in Shasta. I guess I'll tell this. It's kind of a fun story.
Yeah, you need to tell
Uh,
that.
so I was in what's that store? Soul Connections, the big store, and
Soul Connections is the big one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I bought a book called Time Travelers from Our Future, The Time Travelers of Our Future, or something. And I literally just bought it, and we left that store and we went across the street to this other crystal shop. And my friend Katie, we walk in the shop and she's drawn to these stones. She's like, "Oh, what are these stones?" And the guy's like, the shop owner, he's like, "Oh, those are time travel stones." And she's like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Oh, they are? Give me all of them." I was like, I'm just jokingly. I said, "I'll take all of them." And he's like, "Yeah." And he explained what they were. He's like, "They're lab grown. They're not natural, but um, and he explained all the properties and what they do. And he's like, yeah, pick one up and like find one that, you know, feels right to you and hold it up to your heart. And he was like guiding me through how to use it. And as soon as I did, I felt like I felt really, I don't know, I felt this really weird energy. I'm like, oh, this is like, there's really something to this. And he was explaining how to like work with the stone and how to make it work and like whenever you go home with it, what to do to activate it and how you can actually like he was explaining that, you know, we can time travel as individuals. We don't need the technology. And he said this stone like helps and all the stuff. And so I go over to the counter and I end up getting two of them and he weighs them. They weigh 57 grams and I buy him and he's explaining to me more about the time travel and he's telling me about how there's like two different portals in the store that like one time a Telosian portaled in and one time a Lumerian came in and he was just telling us all these crazy stories like matter of factly and all this stuff and he was like I don't know kind of maybe shady maybe not like he definitely knew some stuff but like I started to question like what his motives were or who he was even working for at that point
Right.
but I was still like way fascinated with all this stuff and I was just hearing him out so uh I go outside and I as soon as I'm done with that I buy the stones I walk outside and I pull up my phone and then there's a suspicious attempted login attempt to my Instagram account from Mato Grosso, Brazil. If anybody watched our Hollow Earth webinar, Mato Grosso is an inner Earth portal. It's an entrance to it can lead to Telos or any other of the inner Earth civilizations. Well, we were just in Mount Shasta, which is Telos, right? And there's no such thing as coincidence. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like the only thing I even did that TikTok video where I went on Google Earth and went to Mato Grosso and I found this blue light that
That's
didn't
right.
belong.
Looks like a
Yeah.
And
giant
I went,
portal. Yeah.
yeah, and I went back there and it wasn't there anymore. So I caught something on Google Earth and it literally looked like a portal in a black hole right in Mato Grosso on this like blotched out area in Google Earth. And so I kind of did a little digging on it before, and I was really drawn to that area specifically. So I'm in this, I buy this time travel book. I go to the shop, I buy these time travel stones. I walk outside, and someone tries to log into my phone from Mato Grosso. And
Of all the places on Earth,
right,
it's like it's so
right,
specific.
such
Come
a
on.
specific place. And
Right.
I told my friend Katie, I think that was me jokingly. And she goes, she looked at me, she goes, I think it was. So she's like, you gotta go. I had to go back inside and tell the guy. So I told him what happened, and he was like really fascinated. And he goes, and without me telling him the theory that I thought it might have been me, you know, and he said, he goes, you should ask those stones that might have been you. And and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like, what are the odds of that? You know? So then my friend, like, she goes and gets two stones as well. And these are all different random size stones and everything. And she picks out two, and both of her stones weigh exactly 57 grams as well, which is a weird, like, the chances of that even happening were
Right.
wild. And there was just so many things on that trip. Like that every day was like that in Shasta. I mean, there was like
Yeah.
every hour something like that would happen. There's just like what reality are we in?
That's
Um,
Shasta. Yep.
yeah, but
That's
it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah. So that was. Does that mean that was you from the future,
Or
or
me
like
right
a
there in that
parallel?
very moment.
yeah, go in
Or
there and
Yeah,
yeah, like that very moment, somehow you were at two places at once,
yeah, like a
sort of thing.
bilocation type of thing. I
Yeah,
don't know. Maybe
or
it doesn't mean
something.
that at all. But
Or maybe you went back in time from from the future and like did that at that exact time to like prove it to yourself. I don't know.
yeah, that's what
Who
I think. It
knows?
would have been like proving it to myself in a way.
Hmm.
Like Jessica Jones, where she said she was out in the woods with her team doing their like Bigfoot hunting or whatever, squatching, and she heard somebody from like across the river yell time travel
That's right.
and
I
but
remember
then
that.
she thought it was the weirdest thing but then she realized it was her
It
voice.
was her voice. Yeah,
Yeah,
she said.
and she thinks that like she somehow like came back and yelled across just to like
Yelled
confirm to her.
time
Yeah,
travel to, but like she it's almost like you can't like directly contact yourself in the past because that causes problems, but you can do these like indirect things like yell time travel from a distance or do what you did with the Mato Grosso thing to like try to prove to yourself, hey, this is going on, or whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Trippy.
It's
Well,
trippy, right?
You ready to move on to the next question? Or
When
go
was
ahead,
that
Jay.
experience in Shasta? When did that,
When?
was that was recently?
That was
That
like
was
2 weeks. That was like 2 weeks ago,
yeah.
Wow.
or not even.
Yeah, not even really.
It was so me and my partner did a it wasn't actually a wedding. A lot of people are calling it a wedding because it looked like a wedding, but it was we calling it a commitment ceremony. We're not actually getting married. We don't want to get the government involved in our relationship. But we did a wedding style ceremony in Shasta, which is where we met 2 years ago. On a Lowell Johnson hike on the mountains. We kind of tried
It
to
was
recreate that same
beautiful.
hike. It was beautiful.
Congratulations. I saw the
Thank you.
pictures. It looked awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It
So
was
yeah, Tyler was there and some other people. Barry Everson was there. Lily Nova were there for almost a week.
yeah, 5
surrounding
days, 5, 6 days. It
5 or 6
was
days. Yeah.
it was absolutely beautiful, and I was so proud to be a part of it. It was, I mean, you know, you can't pick a better place. You drive up to the top of Mount Shasta and then hike another 20 minutes up, and then like probably the most sacred place you can pick on top of this mountain. It's just absolutely beautiful. And
Yeah.
like whenever we were walking up there, I felt like I walked through this wall. I swear we were in another dimension or another frequency.
Oh yeah. I think
And
we were.
and I got this. I don't get messages. I'm not a channeler, and I just like got overwhelmingly like overwhelmed by this message that um there's gonna be a bigger audience than you realize. Basically, meaning like there was gonna be like Telosians and Sasquatch, whatever. Like the presence was palpable. You could feel it, and like there were definitely other beings there, and for the ceremony. And they were very, very happy that it was happening because that was the other message that I got that I forgot to say. It was they said, we're happy because this is the original church, meaning nature.
Yeah.
Nature is the original church, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And the fact that you did it up on the top of the mountain and like called it a sacred ceremony, and that's another thing. There was so much that I came and I couldn't think of in a moment. And they said even just by putting the word sacred in front of ceremony, there's a frequency within the word sacred. You could technically like this lighter could be sacred if I put sacred in front of it. But it's
Right.
important to understand that placing that word in front of ceremony, sacred, it brings that energy back.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and there was just so much about it, but it was there was definitely more people there than just the small group of us.
Yeah.
And
I could feel that. I
yeah,
could definitely feel that too. Yeah.
and
That,
they wanted me to make sure that we didn't forget to thank the mountain and honor the trees and the rocks and the plants and everything around because they're
Mhm.
all conscious living beings as well.
Yeah.
And you know, they're here as well, you know, whatever. So
Right. Right.
is that if you go to Bunny Flats and then you hike up from there? Is that where you guys were?
so you drive past Bunny
Not Bunny
Flat,
Flats, but Bunny Flats is beautiful.
right?
Was it
It
the
was
other side?
actually Old Ski Bowl, as high as you can drive, Old Ski Bowl.
Okay.
Park
Right.
there, and then there's like a trail you can hike up from there. And actually, so originally we were planning on doing it at the spot that Lowell Johnson took us to, which is not the spot that the mountain opened up that he went in to tell us with, you know, his whole story. That's actually a different spot that like only he knows, I think. But he took us to this other spot. This is 2 years ago, by the way, during the Rob Potter conference 2 years ago. He took us to this other spot that he says they told him to take us to. That would like the energy of that spot would help prepare us for whatever we needed, basically. But it would help to like prepare us, and you could feel the energy at that spot. It's very powerful. And we were going to do it there, but then the problem is it's a really small space, and it's kind of a harrowing hike to get to there, at least what we found at the time. I think we realized there's actually a more gradual hike up to it, like farther down somewhere, but we realized that after the fact. But either way, like we found this other spot that was just more on that
It was
first
the other
path.
spot was perfect.
And it was, yeah, because we
Yeah.
found that we're like, okay, well, if we, you know, we first hiked up to the original spot, we're like, well, if this doesn't work, that spot is amazing, we'll just do it there. And then we realized, yeah, this is too hard for people to get to, it's not big enough. So then we ended up doing it at that spot, and it was perfect. It was like beautiful. So I
Yeah.
think it was meant to be
Yeah,
at that
I believe
spot
so.
instead.
That spot was special, man. It was good.
Yeah.
Um, So let's move on to another question. Thank you for interviewing Zaysan. I had never heard of him or his contact experience. I'm wondering about his work rescuing children from sex slavery. Do you know anything about his? And that's where the comment ends. Um, yeah, so it was an amazing interview. I would love to interview him again. I was actually trying to meet up with him for lunch while I was in Florida, but we kept missing each other. Um, I I plan on interviewing him again, and I do want to ask him about some of his child rescue missions because he has a lot of information on that. He likes to focus on the positive side of things, obviously, and a lot of those stories are very heartbreaking. So he's doing some amazing work, and we just interviewed Tom Dongo, who remote viewed his testimony and ended up contacting the commander of the ship that he always goes to, and it was like and proof positive to Tom that, Zaysan wasn't making it up, but he's coming from the heart anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Any other questions? I'm still way back in the chat here.
Chastity just donated $20. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Chastity.
yeah. Wow. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We really appreciate that. Question: how much of the population do you believe are NPCs?
That's a good
Everyone,
question.
all of them.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. I don't know if I can answer that.
I don't know the exact percentage. It seems like, I don't know. I would
Quite a
say
bit.
maybe a third. Is that too high or too low? What do you think?
And what would you guys
A
define
third?
an NPC as?
An NPC is somebody who is literally just here going through the motions that they're
Non-player
completely
character.
yeah,
Yeah.
non-player character. They're going through the motions. They're here they're signing up for the chip in their brain. They're signing up for the 15-minute cities. They're the ones like fueling the system, right?
But do you
And
think
they're
they have
like,
souls, or do you think that they're like created to just be NPCs and they will never be more than that?
I've heard
I
different
think,
theories on that. I
yeah,
think they have a type of soul that's not the same as like our type of soul.
Yeah.
But everything has consciousness, right? Everything has some type of consciousness. So they have a
right.
type of consciousness, which means a type of soul, but it's more of like I guess, I
They're
don't know.
they're genetic misfires.
That's a Seinfeld.
Uh,
That's like, yeah.
no, it's
Um,
from a different movie, but
oh, that's different. Sorry.
Because
Well,
I've
Dolores
heard
Cannon
theories
talked
that,
about it. Dolores Cannon mentioned she called them
the background people.
the
yeah,
background people, which came through her sessions, the background people. And she said, just like you see like a movie set, they have to have all these extras to fill in so it looks like
It looks like,
normal
right.
things are going on, but the only people that are actually scripted in the movie are very few. Well, she says it's the same with our planet right now. It's like so judging from what she said, it would be actually a lot higher number than that. It would probably be like 80% at least.
Right. Well,
Um,
what were you gonna
I don't
say,
know.
Jace?
I was going to say that, and then I've also heard theories of cloning, whether that be in kind of more
Yeah.
modern times or even ancient cloning that has been ongoing that we haven't known about, where there are just, these vessels being spit out to be these background people.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
what I
agree.
believe either. Like
Well,
it's
that's
hard to get
that's
Yeah.
that's the whole theory behind the pod people, the Cabbage
Yeah,
Patch
yeah,
Kids, right?
yeah.
So
Mhm.
so there's a video somebody did that said the Cabbage Patch Kids were essentially cloned children. That's where, all these kids came from that filled up the orphanages, and there were no adults, and there's, there was just a workforce of children. What happened to the parents? Google has some bullshit explanation, but nobody actually knew what, any of the adults that remembered anything were put in the insane asylums because they remembered our past, right? So they needed a fresh slate of children that they can, put into the Rockefeller education system and teach them their version of history and, create the future that way. And there's people that say any of the offspring of the pod people, the Cabbage Patch Kids, are the NPCs. It's literally in the DNA. It's in their lineage where basically it would be described as like something was removed to stop them from ever going through an awakening. And like
Yeah.
Carrie Cassidy calls it the rebel gene. Like the people who actually have that gene that's not removed is like the rebel gene, and the people that will eventually rebel. So I think that's
Because it does
possible.
seem like they have no independent thought, like no ability to think for themselves at all,
Right.
right? It's just
And
the
I
programming
think,
goes in and that's what comes out
yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah,
Like,
because
yeah, and they're the ones.
I feel like there's a difference between the like that kind like true like NPC background character Cabbage Patch clone type NPC and then people who are just asleep, but they can wake
yeah,
up. But
but
then
they
it's like
can, right?
there's NPCs
Right.
that feel like they will never wake up and they're never meant to. They are
They're
just
not.
Right.
background.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And when we did our clone webinar, one of the big topics of discussion is, do clones have souls? Well, what we came across in the Shining the Light books, they talk about
Mm-hmm.
the way, so they do have a soul, but what happens is there's a literal type of crystal technology that's installed into the spine of the clone that stops the soul from fully integrating into the body. The soul comes here with the intention that it's going to serve its full purpose, not understanding. I mean, I don't know. This is just the way it was described. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, in a
Just
nutshell,
enough of it can get in to animate the body, but
and
not enough. Yeah.
right. And so that soul is like, it spends the rest of its existence trying to get
Mm-hmm.
into the body, but it can't. And it creates this dissonance, right? And it's just like, uh I
Yeah.
mean,
And they just
it,
become these
it's
programmed mindless drones because of that.
right.
Is what the
And
book
they
describes.
said they said that there is a small percent of a chance that it could actually, that a clone could actually have like an awakening if the soul were ever to integrate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
so yeah, I don't know.
I wonder even with plants, like when you clone a plant and propagate it into like 100, is that soul split up or are new souls coming in to inhabit each new clone of the plant? Because that would give us a better idea with
Yeah,
humans too.
that's a
Yeah, that's
great
a good,
point, actually.
that's a good question. Well, then you see things like birds that are all flying. They all fly in complete synchronous. Schools of fish that are all like. I've heard people say that that's actually one soul that's making up all these different animals, and that's why they all kind of like act in synchronization a lot, because
I
it's
could see
actually
that.
one soul, one entity that's just in multiple different
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
things. So I think that's probably going on to some degree. But I don't know
Um,
about these NPCs. Maybe that's going on with some of the NPCs too, where it's just like one that's making up like a whole bunch.
yeah,
I don't know.
maybe, yeah, because it creates like a hive mind, so they all
And
do
that's
and think
why
the
the hive
same.
mind is such a yeah.
I mean, I think they're the ones who are signing up for the sex changes and all the stuff. Any of the
Mhm.
agendas that they're pushing, they're the ones that are playing it out and making it a reality.
Right.
Um,
Right. Well, you just see it. I mean, it's just so obvious. You see it where it's like every time you see the program blasted out, you see the instant, like, yes, master, blah, 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 like mind control, MK Ultra to the max. Like, they just repeat word for word
oh,
exactly what they're told to think and say and do. And it's just no
so
independent thought whatsoever.
that reminds me, my friend said at the beginning of the opening ceremony of the Olympics, when the horse was coming out,
Hmm.
they were showing like this video. She said it was an MK Ultra video. It was just flashes, and it looked exactly
Really?
like an MK Ultra. And she goes, it was crazy programming. She's like, they were trying to MK Ultra the whole audience. Like,
Oh, I
dude,
believe it. I totally
yeah,
believe it.
and
Yeah.
on some level, it might have worked on certain people. The
Yeah,
people that
sure.
are literally defending the opening ceremony and
Right.
trying to say that there was nothing wrong with it. I mean,
There you
come
go.
on.
Well, that's where I think we're going to need some even more overt, potentially dark event to happen to wake up those people. Because there are so many people
Yeah.
who are still like, that didn't even wake them up. Trump shooting didn't wake them up. COVID didn't wake them up. Like, it's like
Right.
that is literally calling in the catalyst for something even crazier to happen to wake those people up.
Right.
Well, I think there's a percentage that are just never going to wake up.
Well, maybe
And
some of
that's
them are supposed to create a balance too.
Maybe.
yeah, or in this lifetime, let's say it that
Yeah.
way. And this incarnation, they're just never. And I know people personally in my life that, man, I'm just like, I do not see them in this lifetime ever getting beyond where they're at now. They just are so determined to stay in their little box, and
Right.
they're like terrified of even like considering anything outside it, right? They're and even like Q said, what did Q say? 4 to 6% are lost forever. Basically, like
Yeah. Yeah.
roughly
Yeah.
4 to 6%. So
Are
let's just say
lost forever.
5% roughly of the population. They're just never in this lifetime going to wake up. Right.
You know,
Which could be
another,
part of the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead, you go
I was
first.
gonna say that could be part of the kind of die-offs that we're seeing too, whether or not those are related to the vaccine or not.
Mhm.
But like sudden deaths
Yeah.
could be the people who the universe is like, well, we you're not gonna wake up, so we're gonna kind of make room for another soul that is more likely to wake up to come in. And
Right.
Yeah.
speaking of the Olympics too, did you see the myocarditis dance that they did? Where like
No.
this was one of the lesser popularized clips, but there was a clip in between everything else where they were doing like a crazy, twerk like dance. And then they all just start falling to the ground and the ground is red. And it's like they're dancing and then they die. And it's like the camera's just going through and like
Ugh,
half the people die and half don't. And it
that
was
feels
going around
gross.
Twitter as the myocarditis dance.
Yeah, I mean, they're telling you,
Yeah,
I swear, that's how it happens.
that's what
You
they
know,
do.
it's
Yep.
funny too, because I see it's almost they use that opening ceremony as fuel to target Christians as well, because I saw them, they're like, oh, Christians will say anything against their religion is satanic, and just because it isn't in the Bible doesn't mean it's satanic, and that Christians were getting hardcore attacked, and there is like that very dogmatic Christians that do believe like everything is a demon, right? Like aliens are demons and all that stuff. So on one level, yeah, I
Right.
understand where they're coming from, but they used it as an opportunity to target Christians as a whole.
Mhm.
And so it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's
It's like
anything to that.
Christianity probably is the most pure of the organized religions and the most threat to their
Mhm.
establishment.
Right.
Even though it's been so distorted and so messed up, it still is, and it's still Jesus, Yeshua, seems to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, threat to them, and that's why they demonize him so much, and they have such contempt, and that's why they're always mocking him and mocking Christianity and trying to demonize it and all this kind of stuff. Because there are, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that call themselves Christians that I think are not actually following Jesus at all, and they're following the distorted
Right.
cabal, distorted, what gets called Christianity, that is actually very, if you look into it, it's actually very satanic and anti-life. And a lot of teachings that go along with it, like hell, and that's a whole thing.
So
But there is like the good in Christianity that is like the true teachings that line with that, and there are people that call themselves Christians that are more following that, and there are a lot of them as well, and that that is like the light that they're trying to stamp out, along with anyone who's spiritual at all in any religion. There's obviously
there's a reason
every
that
religion has
there's a
people
reason
that
they're
are
trying to shut it down. There's a reason.
but Christianity seems to
Yeah.
be the main threat, and that's why
Right.
they're trying
Yeah.
to, and the United States in general is, it's like they have to take over the United States and stamp out Christianity. That's like the biggest roadblocks, it seems to be, for their agendas, and just why they rail so hard
Right.
against.
Well, I want to go on to the next question here. Well, there's one question that said, "What books do you find yourself referencing, reading repeatedly because of the information?" I mean, that's so many of them at this point. And if you follow our podcast,
There you go.
there you
Law
go.
of One.
Law of One,
Yes.
Sands of
Oh, hold
Times,
on.
Law of One, Sands of Time, the Uber Prophecy, the
Nice.
Boom. I got
what's the one we
3 of
just
them here. Books one,
Law of One
two.
is the one that I just come back to as like the most pure of anything else that I found. Like it's
right,
not
Mhm.
perfect, right? Nothing is, but like every time I reread it, I'm at rereading it with like a new level of awareness and consciousness, and it's so multidimensional in that aspect.
uh,
Like
I would say Katie and the Chorus, if you guys know who I'm talking about, her two books are very similar to Law of One type of material, but it's a different feeling, but it's very similar to that type of stuff. And Law of One's not for everyone. It's not an easy read. So Katie's
Yeah.
books I think are amazing, and it's the same message. But not the same. I'm not trying to like
another perspective.
it's another perspective, but just equally as important to, I think everyone should read them. And then, as far as like disclosure goes, there's tons of books like The Sands of Time for the
Sands
time
of
travel.
Time.
The Secret Journey to
Amazing.
Planet
Yep.
Serpo has an
Serpo.
amazing like history of everything from like the late 1800s to now, like how we even got to this point as far as
Mhm.
traveling the stars. And
This book right
that
here is
book, yeah,
amazing. Highly, highly recommend this book.
Life of the Cosmos Clearance. Yeah, there's so many books, guys.
Uh,
Like it's
Niara Isley's book.
yeah.
Highly, highly recommend her. It's amazing. It's so
And
good. Everyone
the
needs to get it.
Flagarian Diaries.
Flagarian
Jason
Diary.
books are really good. Okay.
1, 2, and 3. I'm on
Aaron's
book
just like
2 still.
playing show and tell.
Playing, yeah.
Um, Price is Right model.
Right,
So
yeah.
okay.
Dolores Cannon, Three Ways of Volunteers in the New Earth. Phenomenal, phenomenal book.
You got a whole library handy, Aaron.
Oh yeah, I
Right.
got most of my library like right here, so I'm like
All
grab
right.
some books.
So we'll do a couple more questions and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up, guys. So we're not here too long. Question within all the fires, thinking about here in Jasper, do you think there are portals where the animals, Sasquatches, could move to other dimensions? Absolutely. Now, it's sad to think that a fire would destroy their environment, their habitat, right? And who knows if it would even damage a portal. I don't know how that works, but they're existing pretty much prominently in the other dimensions anyway, I would imagine. Now I'm sure there's some groups that are here in the third dimension that might be just hiding or underground, but uh it's interesting you say that about the fires because I have this clip I want to play really quickly. I have to share my screen. Let me pull it up first. It's from a G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s talking about them having direct energy technology from the satellites, direct energy weapons, starting fires. And this is from a cartoon in the 80s. And obviously, if you know G.I. Joe, the bad guy is Cobra, as a reptilian, enemy. So, um, share sound.
And I think G.I. Joe and Transformers, they're about to do a crossover movie.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Something so small could command a satellite orbiting hundreds of miles above us.
Quite. Observe the power that is ours to command. We can direct the solar satellite's microwave beams anywhere, just as with this model. I am the new fire department. If they don't pay, I start fires.
How much do you think they will pay?
Fire insurance is expensive, Destro. I would say billions. Billions.
Could you
Jeez.
guys hear that?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
crazy.
And
There
and
you
you know
go.
how I discovered that? I fell asleep a couple of years ago with my TV on, and I woke up and that was on, like G.I. Joe was on, and I'm just like half asleep watching
Not
it,
coincidence.
and I was like, oh shit, thank God you can rewind TV nowadays, and I rewound it, and I recorded that part, and I was like, wow. I mean, in particular, if you watch the show, that's actually they're targeting California in
Mm.
the show,
Yeah,
so.
there you go.
It's and they're talking about raising the insurance and then collecting the money through the fire insurance. They're doing the same thing in Florida with the hurricanes. They're manipulating these hurricanes to hit the state, and then they're raising the insurance premiums. It's
Yep.
literally the same thing in the G.I. Joe cartoon.
That's crazy.
Uh,
The question was about Bigfoot and if Bigfoot were able to escape that kind of thing. Is that what they were asking?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
Sasquatch they're interdimensional. They can absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I think they have a lot of abilities that I think we will have at some point, all of us, but they're a lot older of a race than we are, supposedly, and they're kind of like our older brothers as a species, because a lot of the same star races are in their genetics as are in ours, but they're a lot older by like millions of years than humans, supposedly, and they never got shut down like we did, so they've just kind of been in hiding at these times because they're being hunted by the cabal and the dark players. But
Have you
they just like, if you see them, it's because they let you see them. Just like if they know your intentions a mile away. They can see you coming and everything. I think they're able to hide from these attacks and protect themselves in many ways.
I've been deep diving into Bigfoot, what the Law of One says about Bigfoot the last week, and the LL research other channelings that are a part of it. And they say that there are 3 kinds of primary beings that we would call Bigfoot colloquially. And that the first kind of Bigfoot is a basically one that lives deep in caverns within the earth that are not, so that there is like a telepathic interdimensional kind, and then there's a more dense kind that's more like ape-like. And those ones, they say, are specifically for souls from Maldek. So Maldek being the planet that was the asteroid belt.
That
They
blew
say
up and made the asteroid belt. Yeah.
yeah, so when Maldek blew up, these souls were in a really deep knot of karma because they blew up their planet. And so they say that they brought a lot of those souls to Earth and put them in these one specific type of Bigfoot bodies so that they could live out their karmic lessons without having the dexterity and advancedness of being a human to create like destruction again. And those ones are like not very capable of evading humans, so they can be detected more easily because they're not as telepathic. But then there's the ones that I think most people in like these kind of circles are the ones connecting which are the telepathic, like multidimensional kind. And they say those ones are specifically were created to be vessels in case of the event of nuclear war on Earth. So basically, if we attempted to do another Maldek or Mars again, they hybridized this ape humanoid being, which they said was not the kind of humanoid we were, but a different kind of humanoid, and that it was a backup so that in case we were not able to live on the planet anymore, that they would have this chemical body that we could incarnate into to keep doing our Earth lessons. And then the third kind is actually the dog man, is what I discovered recently, what they call, an astral werewolf kind of, but it's a thought form. So it's an astral being that creates a thought form craft. And they will, they're responsible for a lot of these like cattle mutilations. So they will basically manifest into reality for short periods of time. And they need to consume like blood and like, like any other animal or like us to be able to live, but they don't stay here for very long. So they'll manifest for a little bit and then they'll kind of pop out of reality and back into the astrals. And I was like, that's so fascinating.
That makes sense. Yeah. I have heard about the Sasquatch, or the one type of Sasquatch being used as the Maldek. Because of the karma they were put. I remember hearing about that, which makes a lot of sense. Like the more primitive kind of ones that can't repeat that cycle, so they're able to just work out their karma without being a danger, again. But then there's the other ones that are much more advanced and interdimensional and benevolent and all that.
Was the name Maldek used or Maldek used in the Godzilla King Kong movie? I thought I heard like somebody named I
Tiamat, maybe? Maybe they said, did they say Tiamat in there?
Tiamat, that's what it was.
Name. It goes,
yeah. I was surprised to hear Tiamat like as a name for one of the Titans.
There you go. More
what did they name Tiamat? I forget.
I think it was one of the Titans, right?
Really?
Oh yeah, it was the one in Antarctica, huh? The serpent one in Antarctica.
Yeah, so which is still Maldek, which is interesting. It was the one in Antarctica because allegedly that's where they went after after the destruction of the planet was Antarctica.
And even like you can even see other things like Mars, for example. If you look at the planet, it looks like one whole half the planet was like blown,
it's scarred
from a massive explosion or got hit by debris or whatever. Like from that probably explosion is when that happened. You can see it on the planet,
And supposedly Mars was like a moon around Maldek.
Yeah, supposedly Mars was a moon. Was a moon, and then it got put into orbit, and now it's just a planet. But it was originally a moon of Maldek. Right.
So, okay. So hey, Foil, loyal to the Foils here. She was actually going to join us tonight, but she ended up. Oh shit! I just noticed we got $100 donation from somebody.
Holy shit!
Wow! Thank you. Who was that? How do I find out?
I don't know who are you, Stardust?
Oh, Stardust 4444. She said, your shows have helped me so much. Can't thank you enough. You are truly heart-centered and so inspiring in your authenticity and desire to help the world. Love you guys. Wow, thank you so much. We truly appreciate that.
Thank you so much. It means so much. Thank you.
Yeah, so Foil was going to join us as well, or at least we were talking about it, but she had something come up and couldn't make it. But she's here now in the chat, and welcome to the chat, Foil. You said something earlier about um souls in Egypt. I forgot. I'm looking for that comment. Anyway,
Somebody said at 18 years old, they were shown the planet exploding with a message, "We will not allow this to happen to Earth." There you
they
go.
said Foil said they estimate about half of the population doesn't have an inner monologue. Sure would explain a lot. That's
NPCs.
interesting.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Have an
interesting.
inner monologue.
right.
That lines up.
And this is what she said. She goes, the ancient Egyptians believed in a multi-part soul. Maybe they are missing or have a detached part. That's
Makes
that's
sense.
also, I mean, that's kind of what we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of what we were talking about.
Also kind of reminds me of like Voldemort,
Mhm.
like compartmentalizing his soul into like the Horcruxes, or like Sauron did
Right.
with the ring kind of thing.
Right.
Right. There's disclosure in Harry Potter, even. Seriously.
Oh, Harry Potter's
Yeah.
major disclosure.
Oh yeah. Lots of disclosure.
We just rewatched Lord of the Rings recently, and there were
Lord of
so
the
many
Rings.
Harry Potter like things that were almost exactly the same between Lord of the Rings and Harry
Yeah.
Potter, which just, kind of shows you more that there's
Yeah.
truth to it. And Lord of the Rings in particular was like, I've seen so many people talking about it in the last couple weeks of rewatching it and comparing it to what's going on in the world right now and like how relevant it is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Question, are the clones so bad now because they want to show us and disclose to us that clones exist? Possibly that could be like a zoomed out
I think some of it definitely is
esoteric
that.
reason for it, but also I think they're just they don't feel like they have to hide anymore. And the way I see it is like if these idiots, this is me
They're
putting
arrogant.
myself in their
They're
shoes.
arrogant for one.
Like if
right.
these idiots can't see it by now, then who like fuck
Right.
them.
Well, they're also arrogant. They think they can
Yeah.
get away with stuff and like, oh, we can even put out this shitty clone and people won't even,
Yeah, it's like these
and
idiots
have a
will
mocking
believe
thing.
anything. Yeah.
Well, and then David Wilcock was talking about what he got was that the how Biden did so bad on the debate. Well, that was like a clone that like they let go a little too long, but they thought they could still get more use out of him because they want to make it last as long as possible before they bring in the new one, kind of thing. And it was at the end of its like clone kind of like functional life cycle,
It's a
and
little
that's why it
overcooked.
was so
Left
just
them in the oven a little too long.
left in the oven too long, and that's why we saw, because you notice how you'll see Biden like that one day and then you see him another day and he's like talking perfectly and he's energized and
Well, and then
you're
there's
like,
one
how is
that's
this the
like,
same guy?
and the
Because it's
new
not
guy's
this.
way taller now too. That
Yeah, and then you
one
got a guy who's
He's like a tall gray. He's
you're
just
like 8 inches, right?
even the like
Right.
the legs were the giveaway.
Clearly.
Like how long those legs were. I'm like, this is
Right.
it. That's what I'm talking about. It's
They're
like
not even
they throw that stuff and just see what
right.
they can get away with.
They see what they can get away with, or they're just that arrogant and reckless that they're, or it is.
I
Maybe
think
it
it's
is
more of
partly a
like
white hat controlled thing where they're like intentionally like
it
doing
could be,
things
but I
to-
think it's more of a mockery. Like this, I think it's more of a mockery,
Yeah.
really.
I mean,
Question.
there's so many things going on. It's hard to know what's what. All we know is
What-
there's things going on.
What is your guess of how many are awake? I think it's a larger number than we realize. There's some people that I counted out that I'm starting to see wake up or at least question things. I wouldn't say that everyone's like fully awake.
There's levels.
I
there's
wouldn't even
levels.
say that I'm
Spectrum.
fully
Yeah.
awake, right? But
yeah,
I see people questioning things that I would never have thought would started questioning things. So I think
Yeah.
that percentage is a lot larger than we actually understand. And you won't find out unless you start talking about this stuff publicly and see who
Mhm.
chimes in. And sometimes you'll be surprised.
And I want to say, because I see it kind of get talked about as if like just being awake to the information alone is like that's what awakening all is, and it's like, well, no, that's just being awake to information.
Right.
Like true awakening is spiritual, right? So because
Yeah.
I know plenty of people that they think they're so awake and but then they're like just completely unhealed, completely like spiritually asleep, very volatile and very in fear, very 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 in fear, and kind of like project that out all the time. But they're like, oh, I'm so awake because I know everything that's going on. And it's like, well, that is that the extent of awakening? Like, because you seem to be very asleep on a spiritual level, you know? So I think that's the more important version of awakening, but those two kind of coincide, because when you awaken spiritually, you naturally are able to awaken to the, because it just, that goes hand in hand.
I
right?
would
They
say,
kind of feed each other a lot of times.
I would say the information, discovering, like awakening to the information, can actually be a distraction and hold you back from a
Oh yeah.
spiritual awakening,
Oh yeah.
because you
Can
become
be.
so consumed in needing to know or what's going on, or thinking that you know what's going
Right.
on, that
Ego, super.
that
Oh, I
you
know. Yeah.
there's no spiritual journey there. You don't
Right.
understand that. So there's an other side to that coin. Whenever you are aligning yourself and meditating or doing whatever it is, everybody, it looks differently for everyone. Don't think you're doing it wrong, right? But
Mhm.
whenever you are on that path and you're asking yourself every day, who am I? And like on that path of self-discovery and tapping into abilities and psychic abilities and just download whatever it looks like for you, you start to understand, like, you have this form of what I call direct knowing. It's not like you know everything, but you can like kind of, you can just like scan the area, right? And you can get a feel, you get an energetic download of the whole story, the bigger picture, and you don't need to know every single little detail. It's
Right.
like, I don't, and you're, but the only way you can do it is to understand who you are and how your body reacts whenever you're looking at something. That's why
Right.
I turn on the opening ceremony, and like I needed to watch 2 seconds of it to know that this is inverted, backwards, anti-life, satanic agenda, boom. Like
Right.
whatever else it comes with, like we can dive into that later.
Later,
But
but you
but
just know.
yeah,
You know
so
the
your
energy of
body,
it.
Yeah.
You don't
right,
need
Feel
to
it.
intellectualize every detail when you can read the energy of the situation.
exactly.
Right.
And
It's
that's
way
what
beyond the mind. It's
that's what
like a
comes
greater.
with this spiritual awakening, right?
Hmm.
And some people, they're so analytical and they're so intellectual that like
Yeah.
they can see something, but they're like, no, I need evidence. I need to see this. I need proof. I need this and that. And then so you've already gone, you've immediately discounted your gut feeling, and you're all in your mind, and you're
Yeah.
gonna just
The cup, the
spiral.
mind.
You're just
Yeah.
gonna spiral. You're not gonna get anywhere because you're trying to make stuff make sense that's not supposed to make sense. It doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, so you have to like learn how to just immediately go with that gut feeling and feel
That's
into.
why the most important journey is within, because if you're not right within, then everything external is going through that filter, and then you're not growing spiritually. You're not, like, the real growth and the real awakening is an internal awakening, and is a spiritual awakening. And that is what everything, no matter how bad it seems, or no matter how crazy or negative it seems, everything that's happening can be a catalyst for that awakening, but you have to be the one to use it that way. And you start, the more you start awakening spiritually, the more you see how everything is serving me. Everything is, the universe is working for me, not against me. And I'm not a victim. There's no such thing as a victim. There's only that, right? And actually, you have you have the power of God within you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. That's what Jesus actually taught. He's tried to say, you're the same as me. Do you not know your God's? Like, that's the true Christianity. That's truly following him. Is he was trying to wake you up to that, and
Right.
not to be
And
not to be worshipped as an external savior. The whole savior programming is what they want us to keep us stuck in. And if you think you're awake, but you're stuck in external savior programming, and I'm just powerless, and something else has to come and save me, you're the exact opposite. I'm sorry, you're the exact opposite of awake, because that's the trap.
Right.
That's the big
or
trap.
thinking you're awake and then thinking you've done it all and there's no more work left to do is a
Right.
cop out of self, right? Like,
I've
oh, I
reached the
finished
top. I'm
line,
done. Right.
Yeah.
right? And then
Right.
I mean, to all of us, I think everybody, we're all here means that we're not fully awake. Like if we were
Right.
fully awakened, we would rainbow body Jesus ascend, at the
And
moment that that
We
happened.
wouldn't be. Yeah. We would
well,
have be in a
let
higher
me
realm right
say
now.
something to this. So that's a big. This is something important to bring up. All, all the other ET groups and everybody that's still in this game, the Galactic Federation, all this stuff, they're all still going through an awakening also.
Right.
And when
Right.
they're still using the technology, they're whatever, even though they might be advanced, they're very similar to us. And
Mhm.
like Katie in the chorus, when she was channeling the Federation. They never did identify themselves as the Galactic Federation, by the way. She didn't even know about the Galactic Federation when with this group came through, but they said something to her, and she goes, "Oh, so you guys are still going through an awakening also?" Or no, she goes, "So you guys are still awakening too?" And she goes, she could feel their offense. They were offended, and they
Yeah.
paused, and they didn't, like a moment went by, and they said, "That's a very interesting thing for a human to say." Like they had never, it had never occurred to them that they're still awakening as well. Like they thought
Or
they've had reached this like plateau, right?
and it depends on the group. Obviously, there's many, but or
Right.
they know that, but they were just offended that it was coming from a human because
Right.
they're probably one of the groups that looks at us as like, oh, they're so
Right. Yeah.
primitive and
We're supposed to
asleep and
bow
blah,
down
blah,
to them. Yeah. Like,
and we're so much greater. But now you have this supposedly lowly human telling me, pointing out the truth that I know that they shouldn't know, kind of thing.
right.
I totally agree.
That's
Like, if you are not completely one with God, returned to source energy completely, like you're not fully awake, like if you want to call it that. And I think with star seeds, wanderers, like whatever you want to call them, a lot of them have a mission, and they feel like they're here just for their mission. They're not here to learn, they're just here to teach. And I think that's a big kind of distortion too, because I
Right.
think a lot of what the starseed wanderer groups are going through is flushing out the distortions that are being experienced on the higher realms. And we've come here not just to teach, but to also find harmony in these imbalances that up there it takes way, way, way longer. But here it can be done way more rapidly because the catalyst of experience is so much more
Yep.
efficient and quick because of the veiling process
Mhm.
that a lot of these star seeds, it's an equal thing. And that's why, Law of One calls it teach/learning, because it's really one and the same thing. Every teaching is also a learning within itself.
They're not
Right.
separate things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've heard that from many sources, and I think that's even come through Bashar, where it says like, you came here because the very specific type of experience that this plane gives is a very intense experience, but then you're able to grow so much faster and learn things so much quicker and work through karma so much quicker, all of it because it's so intense. Whereas like, well, just like you said, in these higher
Right.
planes, yeah, things are way easier and way more blissful and harmonious, but it takes you way, 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 way longer to
Yeah.
learn what you can learn in like one lifetime
Yeah. It's
here.
accelerated here.
One
Yeah.
lifetime, right? It takes you like
It's like turning the
hundreds of
pressure cooker up.
thousands incarnations in
Right.
higher planes or in 5D or whatever.
So we
Right.
are at the 2 hour mark, and we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys. We've went through all the questions. I believe if I missed one, I'm very sorry, but we did our best. And thank you guys again for the donations. And Jace, please let everyone know about your Conscious Crypto Academy. The link is below in the description. But before we wrap up, tell everyone about that, please.
Yeah, so I run an online school called Conscious Crypto Academy. So it's for people who are feeling guided to crypto and just need to learn the technicals of how to walk through everything and have a community to help guide you through the process. So we have a whole course material with video tutorials that show you how to do all the technical stuff that can be kind of intimidating. And then we do weekly coaching calls. So we jump on and we talk not just about crypto, but like about all this kind of stuff too. We tie it in with all the spiritual stuff. And then, we have a group chat too, where we, do Q&A throughout the week. So if you're running into any problems, we can help you out. So yeah, click the link and you can join us for that if you want.
Yeah, Jace has helped me out tremendously. Just learning. I mean, I don't understand that whole world. I'm not good with certain tech stuff, and you really walked me through some of it and helped me figure it out. So he's definitely a great guy to go to. So go check that out if you're feeling guided at all. And guys, we would love to see you at any of the conferences that I mentioned at the beginning. I'm not going to go through them again because it's a lot, but you can just rewind and listen to the beginning. But I will mention the one that Aaron and I are both going to be at next in Tucson, Arizona at the end of September, the Mind Nexus Conference. We will both be presenting individually there, and we're really excited. Carrie Cassidy, John D'Souza, Ben Chastain, Alex Bloom, Jen and Brian Berryhill, among many others, Desiree Foley. So
Link is in the description.
the link is in the
for that.
description. It's the very top one, September 27th through the 29th. and we hope to see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and Arizona is always a fun place to visit. So we're really excited about that. And if you want to go to Egypt next March, join Abby Lynn's retreat. That link is below. There's 5 spots available. I will be there along with many others, including Tony Redrigs and Lily Nova. So we're really excited about that. Anything else before we wrap this up, guys?
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, glad you could join us last minute, man.
Yeah,
Super
this was
excited about
it was a lot of
Thank
fun. I
you.
think we covered a lot of ground tonight, and it
was a
was a lot of
blast.
fun.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, and thank you guys all for being here. Can't do this without
Yes,
you. And
thank
just
you,
a
man.
reminder to go, if you haven't, go check out our Patreon. It's only $5 a month. Our most recent webinar was the Project Crystal Night, The Secret Journey to Planet Serpo. We had a lot of fun with that one, and I'm in the process of editing that one to make it a Rumble upload next month. So it'll be publicly available. But for now, if you want to watch it, it's over on the Patreon, along with a whole library of exclusive content. And I mean a library at this point.
Massive library.
And what we do is try to compile rare interviews and just really good interviews and stuff that we know is being scrubbed from the internet. We put it on our Patreon, and it's all in alphabetical order. I don't know if it's in alphabetical order, but it's categorized, right?
All the normal interviews are in alphabetical order, but then there's like, I have it categorized in so there's all the presentations from our conferences are categorized. The webinars are in a category, and then there's like Tyler said, there's all these classic interviews or rare ones or just ones that you can find technically on free online, but it's kind of a curated list. Let's look at it that way, that we've kind of got there for you. So you could pick any video in there and it's going to be gold. Basically, it's going to be really
right.
You're not going to be wasting your time. Let's put it that way,
It's videos that you can find online, but you won't find them because they're not in the algorithm. You have to know what to look for or where to search.
Some of them
stuff.
it's really hard to find if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them, we had a hard time finding. And when we do, we're like, download now, or however we can get it onto our computer. And
I think there's a few that I can't find anymore online at all. So I think they might have been scrubbed. But
so it's a great play. It's a great way to just, keep a library of all this stuff because it's a modern day book burning right now. So, and
I've been meaning to, I want to start making some book review videos to put on there and some other.
Oh, by the way,
as well. So I'm going to start doing that.
Aaron, buy Aaron's book.
Buy my book.
Yeah.
I have a book.
I don't feel like you mentioned that enough. Oh
yeah. I gotta go buy
Aaron wrote a book this year. It's awesome.
I wrote this book.
That's the hardcover. I haven't seen the hardcover yet. Yeah.
Cover's
the
so
hardcover
beautiful.
is available if you want the
Looks
hardcover.
so good.
Yeah, that hold up a little higher. Yeah. I designed a cover not actually knowing he was going to use it, but we kind of modified it after I did it, and then
slightly modified it.
Yeah. But it was it's an awesome book. It's amazing. Go check it out.
Thank you.
Was
I wrote it in 6 weeks.
Wrote it in 6 weeks, yeah.
Somehow.
It's on Amazon, and that link is below in the description, and it's on our website, journeytotruth.online, where you can sign up for our new email newsletter and stay up to date with everything we're doing as far as that goes. So follow us on all the social medias and everywhere we are. We love you. We can't thank you enough for being here. And until next time, have a great evening. Good night.
Good night, guys.
But it's going to good night in a few seconds because I have to get to the, the page. I'm not on the.
Oh, wait. Good night and
take care, everybody.
Wait, I gotta. Right.
Keep the love in your heart.
Yes.
And live stream.
Where we go, one we go all.
Yes.